music.
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it. Attaboy.
Let me drive. I will make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs it close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
Now, when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
Oh, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. You sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
You gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants. A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes. Every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it?
what we do. It's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own. Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Hello there to you, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the Grand Prix 2 World Championship to continue in this 1990 season. 4 races in, and we've got 12 to go. It's going to be a fascinating battle for this 1990 title in the Retro Racing Managers League here on Downforce Racing UK. Brought to you by GoBobby.uk. I'm Jake Sanson. Beside me is Tom Cairns, and we are getting ourselves ready, are we not, for the GoBobby.uk Cup, which is the pre-qualifying race.
Indeed so, and in case any of you don't know how pre-qualifying works, it's essentially where the top 3 teams, and when I say top 3 teams, the top 3 places determine the teams that qualify along with the 10 established teams for the main race after this one. So it's a very, very close championship, is pre-qualifying actually, between the 13 teams that participate in the GoBobby.uk Cup race. So it's very much something to look forward to. Even though it may not be involving the top teams, it's still worth watching indeed.
Music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy.
Let me drive. I will make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind?
That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It is like being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm going to give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when you run so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on...
A slight technical problem, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for that. We have now got it sorted. We are getting ourselves ready for the 1990 Canadian Grand Prix in the Grand Prix 2 World Championship as part of the Retro Racing Managers League. I'm Jake Sanson. Beside me is Tom Cairns, and we are ready for the pre-qualifying race. An interesting grid lineup with a lot of new talent in this field as well, Tom. And obviously, it's a mission for each of the teams to be one of the top 3 teams to get across that finish line. So we're getting ourselves ready, obviously, for the start of this race here in Canada, and it is going to be a fascinating battle in front of us. Tom Cairns, this is a tough challenge for all of the competitors as they race through, but here at Montreal, it's always a very tough challenge and a tough battle for all of the competitors and all of the racers out here on the grid. I'm going to be fascinated to see what the drivers can do coming into this Canadian Grand Prix battle. And obviously, with all of the competitors now gearing themselves up and ready for the starting grid here at Montreal, it's tough to know who's going to be competitive because this is a tough circuit with a lot of overtaking opportunities.
It is very tough indeed. And as you well know, it's around about 70% full throttle is the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, named after the late Gilles Villeneuve, who is sadly lost less than a decade ago now, actually, which is doesn't feel like it's been that long since we sadly lost him. But his name and his influence on Canadian motorsport still lingers on, and I'm sure the drivers will remember him for how good he was as a driver back in his days. But now onto the pre-qualifying grid, where we've seen so many different drivers dip in and out in terms of being at the front. We've seen some really, really close racing and unpredictable results in each of the 4 rounds this season.
Indeed we do. And of course, it's the first 3 teams across the finish line that will take us into the next race, which is the Canadian Grand Prix itself. It's a 35-lap race. It is a pre-qualifying distance. So obviously the competitors are going to be challenging very hard indeed for the front end of the grid. So it is Aguri Suzuki that runs at the sharp end of the field this time. He's managed to bag the pole position for this particular race, and then it is Michael Schumacher who lines up next up in position. That's a fascinating grid lineup there. Bruno Giacomelli lining up 3rd on the starting grid, and Damon Hill running up in P4. That is a very competitive top 4 of the grid there on this particular occasion, Tom, and it's fascinating to see what we're going to get from it.
Indeed, and Aguri Suzuki there on pole, which is great to see a Japanese driver doing well on the grid there. Just looking at Giacomelli, because Giacomelli came in from round 2 at the moment, and he's tied at the top with Pierluigi Martini in the race for the GoBobby.UK Cup title. Both level on points, but Giacomelli is ahead as he's got 2 wins to his name there. And, you know, what we've seen from Michael Schumacher so far, it's been relatively promising, you know, for the start of his Formula 1 career. You know, he's done 2 pre-qualifying races so far, and he's finishing the points in both of them. Could we well see I believe it's the Reynard team, isn't it, that Schumacher's part of? Could we well see Reynard in the Grand Prix later on today?
Well, he's definitely done a fair job at the start of the season, so we kind of need to see what he's able to do over a decent distance. He was thrown into the car with very little knowledge of it at Imola, did a reasonable job last time out, of course, at Monaco, but this is his first chance really to shine from the front, having had a fabulous start to proceedings. So now we go into the race itself in the hope that we're going to have a really solid start to proceedings. Now, obviously, with this being the Canadian Grand Prix lineup, it's the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, as we mentioned, 35 laps, and every team has a mandatory pit stop that they need to take into the race. So obviously that is going to be a particularly important and relevant part of the race build-up. But they can take their pit stop at any time after the first 13 laps of running. So they can basically choose when to do so and it is entirely their call. So obviously the strategies will be interesting. Some teams will start on a light fuel load. Others are probably likely to start on a heavy load in order to give them the best possible chance. So let's talk through the grid in its entirety from the start then. It's Aguri Suzuki and Michael Schumacher on the front row of the starting grid. Bruno Giacomelli lines up alongside Damon Hill on the second row. Johnny Herbert and Ukyo Katayama are on row 3. From Paul Warwick in the Porsche and Marc Blundell in the Lego Acela. Willie T. Ribbs in the Real is alongside Minardi's Pierluigi Martini. Alain Menu in the second Porsche right up in 11th, and then Alessandro Zanardi in the second Lego Acela is P12. Martin Brundle and Roland Ratzenberger, the second Minardi and second Reynard. Emanuele Pirro and Piercarlo Ginzani. And then we have Joachim Winkelhock alongside Andrea Chiesa, who is set to drive his last race for the team. JJ Leto is actually behind him on the grid, so that's a fascinating dynamic there. Yannick Dalmas and Alan McNish. Gabriele Tarquini is next up from Kathy Muller, Christian Fittipaldi, Mike Thackwell and Juan Fangio II. So the cars are on their starting grid positions. This is all going to come down to the start for a lot of the teams as they'll want to make a big move through the field. Here's Aguri Suzuki in the Lola Renault. But there's a very feisty young German alongside him on the grid. Michael Schumacher in the Reynard. Here we go. And it's a cracking start from the front of the field as Suzuki launches away. Looks like Giacomelli, his teammate, has got a good start as well. Willie T. Ribbs trying to move his way forward as the American charges through for the first corner. But it's the two Lolas that have got through. And there's contact already as Zanardi has taken some damage there by the look of it. And he's had some contact. So Zanardi with the Lego Acela has already got a broken rear wing, Tom.
Indeed, and Giacomelli has managed to get the jump on both Suzuki and Schumacher, and doing well is Johnny Herbert in the fourth position. He's got ahead of his teammate Damon Hill and Katayama running at the top 6 at the moment. But yeah, there was contact by the looks of it with Zanardi. It looks like a rear wing had gone from another car into turn 1. We don't quite know what that rear wing has come from. We'll find out very, very shortly. There's a move there. Suzuki's got back into the lead.
Indeed he has, so Suzuki retakes the lead here in the pre-qualifying race, and it looks as though Giacomelli's on the very much going backwards as Schumacher's got a charge then into the hairpin, and Michael Schumacher, the new German talent in the Reynard, has crept through into second position. A fascinating start from the German as he crashes through the brigade of Lolas. So Suzuki is now into the lead as we know. Schumacher second, Giacomelli third, then Herbert, Hill, Katayama, Blundell, Warwick, Menu, Brundle, Ribbs, Martini, Ratzenberger and Winkelhock. I tell you what, the two Porsches have gone well at the start. They're both in the top 10, but it is Suzuki who's already trying to stretch out the gap out in front.
Suzuki already bridging out a 2-second gap. As you can see, Katayama making a move. By the looks of it, Damon Hill, he's got him into turn 1.
So he made 2 into 1 there, I think, as he was behind Blundell initially, and he manages to get past both Blundell and Damon Hill there, Ukyo Katayama. So the Coloni driver going very well indeed. Into the pits, as we know, comes Alessandro Zanardi with the damage to his rear wing. He's the only one with damage, so problems there for the Lego Acela. But the rest of the field charging forward. Look at Suzuki. He's already started to blast away up front. The Japanese talent hoping to put the Lola Renault team into the Grand Prix. And here comes Johnny Herbert pushing through in the Dallara. And he's through into third place. And that's a move from Blundell as he gets past Damon Hill. A lot of overtaking in these first couple of laps.
Brits very much going well at the moment. We've got 3 Brits currently in the top. So, in fact, top 4 British drivers in the top. And Thackwell's in trouble. He's out.
Yeah, I think he had a problem anyway going into the... Pirro's had a problem as well. So we've got Thackwell out of the race. He's got a throttle problem. But Pirro is about to have an accident down into the hairpin by the look of it. So what's happened here? Well, he's got Chiesa coming to... Oh! Chiesa is hit by Leto. So Chiesa makes the move. But Leto actually hits him into the chicane as Thackwell and the Coloni is recovered by the marshals. But Aguri Suzuki continues to lead the way, but that's problems for Pirro. He's got damage, and surely that's going to be the Monteverdi driver, JJ Leto, having a little bit of a rough word with the stewards later.
So Suzuki crossing the line with a new fastest lap there of 1:23.3. Johnny Herbert closing in on Schumacher. There's a move there from the Porsche. Garrett Warwick down the inside Damon Hill, but can't quite make it work there. The Porsche's having a brilliant first couple of laps. Could we well see Porsche in the mix or qualifying for the main race later on?
Well, Michael Schumacher, the young German talent, let's not forget this man is only 21 years old, one of the youngest talents in this field, as JJ Leto now has a look at the Zach speed in front of him. That is, I think that's Piercarlo Ginzani he's trying to get past. Indeed it is. So Ginzani is obviously the man in front of him that he's trying to make a move on as the two Porsches go to battle. Warwick and Menu. Here's the move from Leto, and he can't get by. So he has another look to try and get through. The Monteverdi's really struggling at this point in the season. Willie T. Ribbs tucked up behind the Minardi of Martin Brundle. And Michael Schumacher there in second position. There is a little bit of an issue for the Monteverdi team at the moment because their man, Stefan Johansson, is currently off injured after a big shunt that he suffered at Imola. And so he's now got at least another 3 races of convalescence to come as Menu has a look at his teammate Warwick and almost falls into the clutches of Martin Brundle in the leading Minardi. His teammate Martini has come up, but Brundle is doing a fantastic job as Johnny Herbert runs in third position. And that's Ribbs trying to get the move on the inside there as well. He's got through, so Ribbs gets past Brundle and backs the Minardi into his own teammate.
So just looking at Willie T. Ribbs, I mean, he's quite an okay start at the moment, getting ahead of both Minardis of Brundle and Martini, and it's been quite a clean field. And obviously with the contact with Minardi and Leto as well, other than that, it's been pretty a clean start actually. Unlike in Monaco, we had that incident involving was it Berger and is it Berger and Alessi, I think it was back then, or
yes, it was.
Maybe involved. Yeah, it was. So other than that, it's been a relatively clean start for the drivers there, and as we can see, Takumi Suzuki continuing to lead the way at the moment. This is Chiesa losing a position there. Looks like Pinzani who got up the inside though, or from the Sat Speed, wasn't it?
Yes, it was indeed. Well spotted. Oh, here comes Giacomelli having another crack at Johnny Herbert. And we go to Suzuki at the wrong moment. Herbert holds him off. Nicely done there to hold on to third position in the Dallara. So it's looking good at the moment for Suzuki in the Lola, for Schumacher in the Reynard, and for Johnny Herbert in the Dallara. Those are the 3 teams set to go through. Giacomelli can't get the move done on Johnny Herbert, and that backs him into Ukyo Katayama, the Japanese driver, who's trying to move his way into the Grand Prix grid. But young Michael Schumacher, 21 years of age in this 1990 Canadian Grand Prix pre-qualifying sprint race, is doing a fantastic job to try and put the Reynard onto the grid for the later encounter. So the young German doing a fantastic job. This is only his 3rd attempt to qualify for a Grand Prix. He hasn't been able to yet. Here's the move from Giacomelli on the inside of Herbert, and it looks as though Blundell's got Katayama in the same breath. I tell you what, this Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve definitely giving us plenty of overtaking, plenty of drama, and now Herbert is going to try the same trick on Giacomelli up the inside line into the hairpin. Giacomelli goes deep, and there's nothing Herbert can do about that. Giacomelli holds 3rd place.
So Schumacher's in second. His teammate Ratzenberger has just lost position, I believe, to Winkelhoff there. So his hopes are very much resting on Schumacher from the Reynard team to get them into the race later on. And Giacomelli, keeping it 2 Lolas in the top 3 at the moment. So it's looking very comfortable for the team right now. And this is Blundell, who's just trying to give Herbert a bit of a distraction into turn 1, but Herbert is not having any of it and protects his 4th place.
There's a great crop of British drivers in the top 10 today, isn't it? You've got Herbert there in P4, Blundell is 5th, Hill is 6th, Warwick is in 8th. So you've got a massive waft of drivers from Great Britain, and even technically in 10th position, a man who honed his skills originally in Great Britain, Willie T. Ribbs, who came over to the British Formula Ford Championship and did a fantastic job in his opening season. That was never too far away from Vinit Patel's mind. And he was the man who decided to take a gamble on Willie T. Ribbs and bring him in for this 1990 season. And at Monaco, it proved to be the right call because Willie T. Ribbs was able to get the team into their first Grand Prix of the season. And is that Hill plus Blundell? I think Hill has got the move on Blundell into the hairpin. He has indeed. So that's worth another look again. As we ride on board with Damon Hill, he makes his move on Blundell. And Blundell just watches the Dallara go by. So nicely handled there from the 2 British drivers, and they kept it clean.
They did, and it looks as though that Hill got Blundell before they even turned into the corner. So it was quite an easy move there for Hill, and that puts 2 Dallaras in the top 5. So Lola, Reynard, and Dallara will be the team going through. They are 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Now it's starting to make sense why Suzuki is pulling out a gap. He's on a lighter fuel load than the other cars in the mix. Blundell's gone even lighter than he has. Katayama in the Coloni running a light fuel load as well. And Paul Warwick in the Porsche, I think, going a little further into the race. So it's no massive surprise to see Suzuki pulling away, but he needs to make good use of these tyres and make full use of the opportunity to get away. Because with a lighter fuel load on board, he'll make his mandatory pit stop earlier than the others, but he's obviously got to get himself into a good position on the racetrack. Otherwise, he could end up getting bulked by the traffic. And that's definitely going to make life harder for him. Just the one retirement so far, and that is the Colony driver, Mike Thackwell. There's Kathy Muller trying her best to get up the ranks. It's Lewis Bassindale, the team boss of the Eurobrun squad, who's gone for an all-British support lineup in terms of the commercial partnerships this year. They were going to be originally backed by the alcohol brand Jägermeister earlier in the year, but the high street chain from Great Britain, Woolworths, have come in and supplied the team since the second round onwards. A lot of initial changes to the commercial packages after Phoenix. And Suzuki, here's Kadeyama, making his bid, has to back out of it though, has to let Mark Blundell go, and that's going to cause him a little bit of a headache because he's got to try and come back at him. But Paul Warwick has already got Katayama lined up. Can he commit to the inside line? The British driver tries again. He just can't quite overhaul the Ferrari engine Colony. But the Porsche's still running solidly in the top 10. There's definite light at the end of the tunnel for them as Willie T. Ribbs misses a gear there. You could just hear on the downshift. Really struggled to keep the car under wraps there as Martin Brundle is giving him a little bit of a hurry up.
I think the best opportunity to overtake, in my point of view, is going to be the end of the first back straight, as what we've seen from earlier on. It could happen here, you know, because Martin Brundle's right behind Willie T. Ribbs, and we've just cut away from that moment. It'd be interesting to see if Brundle got by him. We'll have a look on the graphic on the left-hand side. There we go. Look, Brundle down the inside.
He had a good go, didn't he? But Willie T. Ribbs keeping that car very wide. It's not going to happen. The problem is you've got to commit to that inside hairpin. Otherwise, you're never going to make the move.
No, of course not. But I think Brundle will get another go at Ribbs. As long as he stays in the slipstream of that car, then he'll be within a chance. And there's a yellow flag there, and that's Winkelhock in trouble.
So let's see what's happened to Joachim Winkelhock. I think that's on the run down to the hairpin. Has he had a mechanical problem, or has someone hit him off? His teammate trying to come through. Oh, his teammate's pitched him off the road.
Oh, no way. Number
Civil
one,
war.
Never take out your teammate.
Dear, oh dear. Civil war at Zaxby. That is going to make team boss Mike Pittman absolutely fuming, Tom Cairns. That is not what he wanted to see.
No, it looked really clumsy. And to make matters worse, Winkelhock is pushed out by the marshals.
Well, that's the thing. Once you're in that gravel trap, you're barely ever going to come out of it. So that is embarrassment like you wouldn't believe at Zaxby. So poor Mike Pittman, he will be absolutely fuming there. So a fascinating situation. Now, an interesting one. Apparently there are rumours coming around that Senna has had to quickly leave the paddock. Sources apparently from within McLaren are saying that he's slightly under the weather. Now that's interesting, whether or not he'd be able to make the race or not. That's a beautiful move from Warwick. On the inside of Katayama, that puts him up into 7th place. So the Porsche comes through, up into P7, getting closer, should the attrition rates get high, for an opportunity to come through. Oh, and that's Kathy Muller slowing. Kathy Muller slowing in the Eurobrun. Problems there. So she, unfortunately, looks as though the suspension's gone on the... oh, yes, you can see that. The suspension's sadly gone on the right rear quarter. So Kathy Muller pulls the Eurobrun off the road.
Not a good day. Not a good day for the Eurobrun squad. And just looking at Mark Blundell on there, he's dropped back quite a bit from Damon Hill by a little bit from the second section to the last. I don't know if he's had a bit of a moment there. He's lost another position.
Yes, indeed. There goes Johnny Herbert. So Herbert goes back into 5th position. Blundell's actually got a lighter fuel load, but I wonder if the top-end speed of the Osella is not quite able to give him the performance advantage that he needs. Now, Schumacher's got to be very careful here in 2nd place. He can't push his tyres too hard, trying to pursue Suzuki as Martini overshoots there into the chicane. Because as we mentioned before, Suzuki's on a lighter fuel load. Now, that means he's got to come into the pits a little early. And that means, obviously, that Schumacher does have a bit of an advantage here. If he can undercut him by keeping the tyres alive a little bit longer, then there's a good chance that he could actually leapfrog Suzuki.
And that's true. And the thing is, when Suzuki comes into the pits soon, where will he filter back out? Because it's quite a congested pack at the moment. So Suzuki will want to get out and clean out. I mean, he's got a 7-second cushion over Schumacher and increasing it. So, as you say there, Jake, he needs to make good use of the tyres that he's got on and pull out enough of a gap to protect his lead once everyone has stopped.
Fair play to Paul Warwick. He's made a fast move on Herbert because Blundell's got through and Warwick's got through as well. There's a lot of overtaking in this race as Menu locks up. Just about gets away with that one. That was a close call there for the Blaupunkt Quaker State Porsche. Based loosely on the IndyCar operation that ran a couple of seasons ago, and Scott Woodward has expanded, brought them to Grand Prix racing. He knows that 1990 is a year of progression, but this is a long-term program for the Porsche squad. They want to be very strong come the next couple of seasons, and their aim is to be a top 10 team regularly. They are fully committed to making Porsche Grand Prix race winners. It's going to take a while, but they're definitely going in the right direction, and certainly the car they've built this year, if not reliable, is certainly fast.
Most certainly fast, and as we well know, Porsche are very, very successful in their time in sports cars. Can they emulate that in Formula 1? Who knows? And there's a move there from what looked like a Minardi of Martin Brundle on Willie T. Ribbs.
Was indeed. So Brundle up into 11th position. There's Suzuki braking for the hairpin, just trying to keep the car on the straight and narrow. It isn't a long race by many stretches of the imagination. It's only 35 laps, but there's still a lot that can happen in those 35 laps. And obviously, it's all about the first 3 teams that cross the line in order to get into the Canadian Grand Prix itself later. At present, that's Lola, Reynard and Dallara. So if they could keep it together, the BMS Scuderia Dallara team have Damon Hill in 4th place behind Breno Giacomelli, the Italian, who's definitely not got the same sort of pace that Aguri Suzuki does, but then he is on a slightly different strategy. He's going slightly longer into the race, which definitely makes it a little bit more competitive for the Lola team. Suzuki out in front of Schumacher. There's Christian Fittipaldi, the young Brazilian, the youngest man in the field, and currently finds himself in the Life, which has done very well. Tom, you guys have definitely engineered this car to a lot faster than it was at the start of the season, and I'm guessing the commercial backing from Field's definitely helped the package.
Yeah, and not to mention, it's running under the charity sponsor of Autism Plus as well, who were founded 4 years ago before this season. And, it's a mental health cause, as you well know. And it's a phenomenal effort of what they've done over the years. And to see them on the car is a huge privilege for me, as I am autistic myself. And we know how important mental health is in people's lives. So we felt it was right put that on our machine. And there's a move from Herbert, well, a photo was, on the Porsche of Derek Warwick, but Warwick has kept his nose in the front.
Yes, indeed. So Herbert just about keeping the car on the road there. Warwick very nearly squeezing him out to the corner curb. But Breno Giacomelli running in P3. Here's Schumacher. Oh, Michael Schumacher pushing the limit there. And he found the grass on the exit. That's going to cost him a bit of time. And that's definitely going to hamper any chances the young German might have had of moving forward. Now, people have said about this young man, he's definitely fast, he's definitely got speed, but a lot of people questioning, have they just made the commitment to jump him up to Formula 1 a little too early? It's an interesting question.
It is indeed, and you know the old saying, don't jump ship too early. That's the old phrase, and Michael, he's got an awful lot to learn. You've got to start somewhere if you're going to be making your way up to the top level of motorsport. You may remember when Ayrton Senna was in the Tolman, a team that were financially struggling back then, made an absolute mark and outperformed the car itself to success in 1984. And there's a move there on Andrea the Sixth. I couldn't quite tell who that was that got past him. Was it a Monteverde that got alongside him? Blundell's in the pit.
Yeah, Blundell makes the first scheduled pit stop, so he's going to go to the end of the race, and Blundell pits first. Now that's interesting because I thought Suzuki would pit about the same sort of time. So with Blundell coming in, Chiesa comes in as well in the Monteverde. I don't think it's going to be too long before Aguri Suzuki comes in. In fact, he's coming in this lap. Right, this is where the race really starts, Tom.
And Suzuki's got a 10-second gap over Schumacher, so this looks very, very comfortable indeed. And Schumacher's mishap on the grass has given Suzuki a bit more of a buffer, but we need to see where Suzuki will come out and who else will come in the pits at the same time, because if there's more drivers coming in on the same lap as Suzuki is, that will very much favour the Japanese driver even more.
Well, here we go. Aguri Suzuki comes straight down the pit road. and he will lose the lead. Schumacher and Giacomelli are going to sail past. Now, as we mentioned before, Tom, the big question is where's he going to filter out? I reckon he'll be about Warwick, Katayama, Menu end of the grid. So about 6th, 7th, 8th. Now, if he gets hustled in traffic, that's going to be majorly problematic for him. So let's see. Schumacher takes the lead. Giacomelli into 2nd. Hill 3rd. Johnny Herbert's up to 4th place. Warwick, Katayama, Martini will go through as well because Menu's coming in the Porsche. But let's see. Is it going to be P8 for Suzuki behind Martini? Yes, it is. So Brundle's going to give him a bit of an attack on this opening lap out of the pits. So it could be fascinating to see how Suzuki gets on.
So Suzuki, I don't think he could have wished for a better track position than where he's come out there, because he's just come out in front of the Minardi of Martin Brundle, and now he's going after the other Minardi of Luigi Martini. And there's loads of drivers in the pits. Dalmas is in the pits, Ginzani as well, and Leto. So could well see them, challenging for the top 10 later on, those guys, providing there's other drivers tripping over themselves or any mechanical issues. But here is Giacomelli, the other Lola, whilst Katayama is down the inside of the Porsche of Derek Warwick, and that's battle for position as well.
That'll be Paul Warwick, his younger brother, in fact, because Derek, of course, Derek is in the Lotus, isn't he? We'll see him out later. We could well see, we could well see both Warwicks in the same Grand Prix. Now that would be fascinating for young Paul Warwick, who's Scott Woodward has very much said, the direct quote was that he decided to throw the dice on Paul Warwick, and he definitely has been rewarded. Up the inside, nice move from Zanardi. Now, this is another young Italian who's really starting to make some waves here. And the young Italian has definitely got some skill underneath him. Ed Hunter, team boss at Lego Acela, going for him this year and certainly seems to be being rewarded. Katayama and Ratzenberger both make the pits. Is it up the inside? That's one of the Monteverdis getting past Fangio. Now, that is going to be Chiesa. So Chiesa gets through and takes the place. And Ratzenberger's in the pit lane as well for Reynard. So it's going to be a couple of laps before Schumacher comes in, but that's definitely going to be the warm-up pit stop as far as Reynard are concerned to get ready for Schumacher as Fittipaldi in the Life comes into the pits. Here's Bruno Giacomelli running in 2nd place now, although of course he still needs to pit, as does the man up the road, Michael Schumacher, but he's still got a few laps to go before he needs to make that pit stop. So Giacomelli has got plenty of time to chase after Schumacher.
Giacomelli can put a bit of pressure on Schumacher that'll at least give his teammate Suzuki less to worry about. But Suzuki is coming up behind Martin at the moment. He's just over a second behind him. He's not losing too much time, and there's some cars coming out of the pit lane as well, which will aid Suzuki even more if the likes of Schumacher and the lock up there.
So, do you know what, Tom? That's such a save, because if he'd have gone in the gravel trap, that would have been it. Game over.
Indeed, and Zanardi's already been in the wars, and Stella's Day nearly got worse there with Blundell, who's just pitted as well, hasn't he? I believe.
Blundell has made the pit stop. Yes, it was Blundell that overshot into the hairpin. Zanardi just came out of the pit lane in front of Giacomelli. So that was well timed from Blundell to keep the car out of the gravel trap, but Zanardi could cause a bit of a headache here for Giacomelli, which is great news at Reynard, because he's come out with a few car legs to spare, and we know that the Lego Acela is not slow, so in a straight line, Giacomelli could really struggle to get on terms with the Acela here.
Indeed, and with the Acela on fresher tyres as well, which won't be good news for Giacomelli as he's trying to get past the Acela, and it's just he needs to get by him very quickly, really does. That lock-up there won't do him any favours.
No, indeed. That's just going to wear out the tyres a little bit more. It's going to get him off the back of Zanardi. This is not good news for Bruno Giacomelli. And team boss Carter McColeman will be having a bit of a long face there, sat behind the Lego Acela. Here comes the move from Ginzani as he tries to get himself back up the order. So he makes the move there on Emanuele Pirro in the 2nd of the Reals, with Willie T. Ribs up in the top 10. Here's Michael Schumacher. Now he's closing up as Brundle in the Minardi comes into the pits. Now who are we about to lap? Michael Schumacher. It's one of the lives. It's Christian Fittipaldi. So Fittipaldi is the man that Schumacher is coming up to lap. And there's Damon Hill running in P3. And Yannick Dalmas. Goodness me, that was a bit of an overshot there at the hairpin. A lot of drivers having a bit of a moment there. I wonder if there's been some oil that's gone down there, or certainly it's a tough old moment as Michael Schumacher has no trouble at all dispensing with Christian Fittipaldi. Andrea Chiesa, that's as far over the curb as you can afford to go. But fair play to Chiesa. A lot of people thought he was being thrown the deep end here, essentially, after Johansson's injury. But here at Montreal, Chiesa's actually outpacing JJ Leto.
Chiesa failed to finish in the Go Bob UK Cup race in Monaco, but yeah, he's not doing too bad of a job. If he can try and keep going in there, we could well see him in the top 10 by the end of the race. We haven't had many retirements so far. We're halfway through now. We've only had 3 retirements, and Blondell locks up again into the hairpin. It's not his favourite corner today is for Mark.
So Paul Warwick is in the pits, so too is Pierluigi Martini. Both of those pit stops are scheduled. A lot of teams here will just want the lack of retirements to continue. I'm surprised, actually. I thought the attrition rate would be higher than it has been so far. But here at Canada, of course, there are obviously issues with suspension and brakes in particular that tend to crop up. But a lot of the teams have been working very hard to get on top of it. We just have the 3 retirements thus far. Mike Thackwell. And then, of course, we have Joachim Winkelhock in the Zakspeed, who was actually pitched out of the race by his own teammate. That's an embarrassing conversation later over at Zakspeed. And then Kathy Muller had the suspension failure to the Eurobrun. Here's Aguri Suzuki, up to 5th position now thanks to the pit stops, but 5 seconds back from Herbert. Crucially though, Suzuki is 15 seconds behind Schumacher in the Reynard, so he hasn't lost as much time as the Reynard team would have liked. In fact, Schumacher is in the pits. Oh, no, he's not! No, he's not! Water leak! It's all gone wrong for Reynard! Schumacher was leading comfortably. And now, unfortunately, he can't even make it back to the pits for his pit stop. So he's got to pull the car off. That is such a shame for young Michael Schumacher.
No, I was just going to say, whilst you were speaking, I would say there was some smoke up ahead. But I didn't want to interrupt what you were saying there, Jake. But yeah, it's a massive, massive blow for Michael. He would have been very much in the mix for the Grand Prix later today. But reliability problems has come back to haunt him, and I don't know if that was a curse from what I was saying earlier on, the low attrition rate. I just don't know whether we'll begin to see a higher attrition now between now and the end of the race, and that will make Suzuki's life a whole lot easier. And here's Menu in trouble.
Oh, suspension failure in the Porsche. They've got a fast car. It keeps getting better all the time, but they just can't quite get it home. And this is the problem. They've got a great car underneath them, but reliability-wise, it just can't seem to make the finish. Hopefully they can get one with Warwick, because the Porsche is definitely a decent, solid car. But if they don't get points on the board, they're never going to be able to prove anything with it. As here's Damon Hill again, chasing after Giacomelli. Now, he's got a good chance to win this one, actually, has Damon Hill. He's already made a great impression on the start. He needs to make a pit stop, but it's only a couple of laps away. Oh, Giacomelli's in the pits. So Giacomelli comes into the pits. So this is essentially for the decision of the race. Suzuki doesn't really have much of a challenge now as Herbert comes into the pits in the Scuderia as well.
Suzuki's pit stop was 8 seconds. Let's see what Giacomelli's is. I think it's going to be short, but no, it's not. It's longer than Suzuki's, 8.8. So I think Giacomelli will still be in play. It should come out ahead of Blundell.
So here he comes across the line. Giacomelli comes out onto the circuit. Where is Blundell? He is indeed behind him. There is Blundell in the Lego Acela. Johnny Herbert gets out behind him, though. That's not great news at BMS Scuderia. They were rather hoping to jump the Lego Acela. Katayama 6th, Warwick 7th, Martini is 8th, Brundle 9th, and Willie T. Ribbs in the Real gets out of the pits in P10.
Carlton Coleman and Emma Featherstone will be very, very happy indeed with how their teams on drivers are looking at the moment, with Damon Hill in the lead and Johnny Herbert in 5th, and the Lolas of Suzuki and Giacomelli currently 2nd and 3rd. But don't forget, Damon Hill is still yet to make his pit stop, but when he does complete it, he should be in the top 4 or top 5, which will guarantee the Delara squad a place in the Grand Prix later.
And I tell you what it does mean. It means that life is okay at the moment for Lola and BMS Scuderia, because they've got 2 cars in the top 4 each. And the team that's been given the big boost forward... Oh, Blundell's got past Herbert. I apologise. So I was just going to say the team that's benefited from the retirement of Reynard is Mark Blundell and Lego Acela, because they managed to move forward. A little bit of a blip of the throttle here from Paul Warwick to try and get the move done on Katayama. This is a great battle between the 2 cars as they race over P6. And they've got 14 laps more of this to go. But Porsche are definitely starting to become a threat now.
And they're very much becoming a threat, because if anything happens up front involving the leaders, then that could put Warwick in play. As McNish comes in for his pit stop, don't expect the live team to be within the shout of points, but who knows? You know, we've seen some wacky races in the Grand Prix 2 World Championship so far in 1990, and there's Warwick there, the sole surviving Porsche behind Katayama. Now, can he make a move down here? We've seen plenty of overtakes so far in the opening 21 laps as Warwick is down the inside, and what a brilliant move there from the Brit.
Sweet, absolutely sweet as a nut there for Paul Warwick. He's becoming one of the stars of this 1990 campaign as Damon Hill pits from the lead. So Damon Hill pits in, and there it is. Aguri Suzuki takes the lead, and I don't think he's going to lose that unless there's a mechanical issue. So Damon Hill in the BMS Scuderia comes into the pits. Now, is he going to get out in front of his teammate Herbert? That's the next big question. Giacomelli should go past the pits no problem, and into second place he does. But I think Hill's going to get out in front of his teammate Johnny Herbert without issue here. Into third position, so it'll be 2 Lolas, 2 BMS Scuderias, and then the fight for 5th position with Paul Warwick dangerously close now to Blundell. Look, he is really on a charge.
7.3 seconds is the fastest pit stop we've had in this race from any of the leaders. Damon Hill's was definitely faster than the 2 Lola cars. That will definitely give him some form of confidence challenging the leaders, but I don't feel, Jake, that Hill will take too many risks, as it's more important to qualify for the main Grand Prix than it is to win the race itself. If we had a change of thing, it's just a couple of drivers in the pits.
Yeah, Ratzenberger had a throttle problem. That's why Ratzenberger, the sole remaining Reynard, we had to go back into the pits though because he's had a problem with the throttle. So the Reynard, while solid and smooth, it just isn't quite reliable enough yet.
No, definitely not. And the Reynard day goes from bad to worse there. Ratzenberger out of contention for points now, which is not good news for the Reynard squad. As you can see, there's Damon Hill locking up in there.
Damon.
Mark Mandel's gone twice.
Damon, careful. You can't afford to throw away a third place finish this close to the end, especially when it looks like both cars are going to get through to the Canadian Grand Prix no problem by finishing in the top 5. The team in trouble here, you've got to say though, Tom, is Lego Acela, because they're in 5th position, but they're being caught rapidly by Paul Warwick in the Porsche.
Indeed, and it looks as though the battle for the 3rd and final teams to qualify for the race will go to the end. And, you know, unless something happens up front involving the Loas and the Delares, it's very much a dogfight between Blundell, Warwick, or in fact Katayama, because Katayama's not too far back from those two. Now, if Blundell and Warwick start battling amongst each other, Katayama will be drawn back in and very much in play for that elusive position, which would guarantee Katayama and his team a place in the Grand Prix.
Oh, that's the Real pulling off. That's Emanuele Pirro. Emanuele Pirro slowing. He's got suspension problems as well. So Ratzenberger has to drive around the outside of him in one of the most dangerous parts of the course. So well avoided by the Austrian, but for Emanuele Pirro, he's trying to limp back to the pits, but I don't think the car's going to get him there. No, it's not. And that could have caused well, there's definitely some bodywork coming off the car as it shears. I wonder if there's some damage to the life that went through. I really hope there isn't, as the field avoids the issue. The cranes here are pretty quick at Montreal, as they are at Monaco. But it's definitely game over for the rather unfortunate... here's Warwick! Warwick having a challenge now for 5th position. So Blundell having to work very hard to keep Paul Warwick in the Porsche at bay. And now Warwick's got another chance, and we know the superior horsepower of the Porsche. Let's have a look and see, is he going to make the move on the inside line? He does! And Warwick is through in the Porsche. Nice move.
A phenomenal move there from Warwick. He's been on fire today. Really, really good form. And going back to what I was saying about the retirement we had from Pirro, the leader was trying to lap the live car as the Real was pulling off with that, which could have caused quite a... And Dalmas is out.
That's terrible bad luck for AGS. They've not had a great start to the season either. A lot of questions about their future for 1991, the way things have started for them this year. It's looking tenuous, isn't it? But that's Yannick Dalmas sadly not going any further in this pre-qualifying race, and they are starting to drop now. We've lost Dalmas, Pirro, Menu, Schumacher, Muller, Winkelhock and Thackwell. But the 3 teams looking likely to go through to the Grand Prix later on today are now Lola Renault, the BMS Scuderia Dallara team, and the Porsche squad. That would be a fantastic trio.
Brilliant trio indeed. And just looking further down, the 2 Minardis are in the top 10, Martini and Brundle there. And sandwiched between them is Willie T. Ribbs, who's had a respectable drive today, has the American. And Chiesa's in 11th place in the race. Chiesa's a long way back from Brundle, but should there be another retirement in the top 10, Chiesa's in play for a point.
Yeah, fair play to the Monteverdis, actually. They've got their act together a little bit in the midfield, and their cars are looking a lot more competitive here in Montreal than they certainly did at Monte Carlo. And Chiesa and Leto definitely on the cusp of points if they can keep the cars operating and keep it going. And it's a team that you do want to see do well, the Swiss outfit. They've put together a strong challenge. Chiesa feels very at home in the team as the test driver. He didn't expect the call-up this season, but obviously Johansson's accident at Imola has kind of changed his attitude a little bit and changed the forecast for the team. But it's definitely looking likely to be a very strong operation from them. Here's Damon Hill, the BMS Scuderia, charging his way further forward, up towards the front end, and Warwick is having a go at Herbert and has got through. He's made the move on Johnny Herbert. Has Herbert got a problem?
He must have.
Indeed he does.
Nice very quickly, yeah.
I did say brakes were going to become a problem here at Montreal, and certainly it's a problem for Johnny Herbert, who pits in. Now, this is definitely going to give Monteverdi the chance of a point, because now Chiesa surely is going to pass the pits any second now. They are a bit of a way back from the likes of Martini, Ribbs, Brundle and Herbert, but Herbert being in the pits, they're going to cool the car down. They've got to sort out those brakes. They'll cool him in the pits, but here comes Chiesa into the final chicane. Now the Monteverdi has a good chance of a point here. Can they beat Johnny Herbert out of the pits? The Monteverdi will be at full speed. So Chiesa's going to be hustling Johnny Herbert out of the pits, and if they have more problems with that car, there's a chance Chiesa and Monteverdi could steal a point.
Well, I was going to say the Delaras have been very, very good with their pit stop today. 7.4 seconds that was for Johnny Herbert's unscheduled stop. It keeps him in the points at least. But yeah, that's not a good omen for Damon Hill, because if he had another issue, or a similar issue to Herbert, then that's the Delara out of contention for qualifying for the race later on. And there's a few battles going on there. I think it's just the leaders trying to lap the back markers. It's not the best place to be lapping back markers, is that complexion there. It's not the safest components, considering the speed at which you have to go through there, which is something that may have to be reconsidered, because it is a very fast turn. We have seen some horrific accidents at that particular corner there, which is not necessarily a good thing for Formula One.
Yeah, there has been some discussion of a circuit reprofile at that particular part of the course, because there's an elevation change in the middle of a flat-out blind kink, and it is a very dangerous part of the course. It has to be said. It's one of the toughest race corners in the sport. Now, looking up the road, we were just looking at the Eurobrun. Martini in the Minardi is having a bit of a fight back here. He's tucking up in behind Katayama. As look at Warwick, he's gone. He's absolutely dropped this pack. And if he can just hang on for the last 8 laps, he's got a chance of getting into the Grand Prix. Here's Martini, though, makes the move on the inside there. Nice overtaking move on Katayama. The Minardi team are back.
They are, and rekindling the form that they had at the beginning of the season, where I think Martini won the first pre-qualifying race in Phoenix. So yeah, the Minardi's going very, very well so far, and Damon Hill down the side there.
I'm not sure what was happening there. Was he on the inside of a back marker, or had he suddenly dramatically caught Giacomelli? We'll have to have a look at that one. So we're looking back. Yeah, he's side by side with the Life there. So Christian Fittipaldi very nearly tripping him up, but the Brazilian got out of the way just in the nick of time. But this is a great day if you're Lola, isn't it? 1 and 2. Giacomelli 14.5 behind Suzuki, but the Japanese driver has definitely shown us what he can do today.
Indeed, and just Damon Hill coming out of turn 2 there. And yeah, let's maybe not jinx it too soon. There's still 7 laps to go, and plenty can still change. But it is looking very, very good for the Lola squad in terms of Suzuki and Giacomelli. I mean, Giacomelli, it's been quite some time since we've seen him in a Grand Prix, so good to see him back there, the Italian. And now we're just looking at Martin Brundle in 9th position, Martini in 6th, so both Minardi's in the points. Blundell, he's still in contention. I mean, Blundell may as well still keep going. You know, he could still well be in play for the win in case something happens to Warwick, or in fact Damon Hill, because Johnny Herbert is down to 10th position. But you know, it's been quite an interesting race so far. And Alex Zanardi's back up to 13th place after pitting very, very early on. But I can imagine he's going to be on very, very old tyres now in the closing stages.
Well, it's a good fight back from Zanardi, considering the problems that he had with his rear wing at the start. But we were talking there about Damon Hill, and we haven't really mentioned him much this season because he's just been quietly getting on with the job. He is, of course, the son of one of the greatest racing drivers of all time. Let's not beat about the bush. Graham Hill, the only man in history to win the Triple Crown, Indy 500, Le Mans 24 Hours and Monaco Grand Prix, which he won 5 times in his career. He is the most successful man in current history here in 1990 to have raced at the Monaco Grand Prix. Although after last weekend, Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian, is starting to stack up those Monaco wins now, isn't he? He won at 87, he won in 89, and then, of course, last time out he won in very exciting and controversial circumstances. He didn't look like he was going to win for a long time. It looked like that was going to be the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell, and Senna took the win. We're now in this pre-qualifying race, trying to see who's going to get the job done. Interestingly, Suzuki is clearly easing off the gas a little bit. He's lost 2 seconds over the course of the last couple of laps. Giacomelli is now just 13.5 seconds behind him when he was 15 seconds back. As up the inside, that's Ribs, and he gets the move on Katayama.
It's a very good place to overtake as well. We've seen a few overtakes throughout the pre-qualifying race so far, but yeah, it's definitely a good move there from Ribs down the inside of the Japanese pilot of Katayama. So we've seen plenty of overtakes, and what my concern at the moment is, with Lola doing so well, will their engines last the distance in the full race later? We know they can do nearly 35 laps. Can they do a full Grand Prix distance?
So along the back straight comes Giacomelli, 13.3 behind Suzuki. No! No! Not today! Not today! Oh, that is so unfair. Paul Warwick and Porsche had done everything right, and the engine blows its top. That car was going through to the Grand Prix. That's just so unprecedented for Porsche. That was their race. They were in the Grand Prix. They had done everything right. Paul Warwick had shown that he was ready to get a Grand Prix under his belt. Not today.
And Scott Woodward will be thinking, when am I going to catch a break? And it just seems to haunt him now, what we've seen in the Grand Prix World Series and in the Great Challenge. It just doesn't seem to be having luck on his side with the way his teams have been performing. But he deserves definitely a lot from that, and the Porsche definitely deserves to be in the Grand Prix. But you have to finish in order to qualify, and even though the cars are quick at the moment, it's still not quite reliable.
Well, all of a sudden, Michael Gillespie will be beaming from ear to ear because Martini now finds himself in 4th position. The Minardi now genuinely looks like it's going to go through to the Grand Prix. The race itself, of course, the Canadian Grand Prix will take place immediately after this one. So it's the first 3 teams across the line that join the top 10 teams in Grand Prix racing in 1990. And that is likely at the moment to be Lola, BMS Scuderia and Minardi, but commiserations to Porsche. It genuinely looked as though they had got the job done this time. 4 laps to go for Aguri Suzuki and Bruno Giacomelli, the 2 teammates at the LaRousse Lola Renault team. And BMS Scuderia's young charge Damon Hill, in his first season in a Grand Prix car, was in Formula 3000 last year, Formula 3 2 years before that. So a very talented young man, and of course the son, 30 years of age this year he will be. Martin Brundle in the Minardi, chasing after the Coloni. And that is the Coloni of Ukyo Katayama, the young Japanese star, who's already put on a good show in the early phase of 1993. Laps to go. And it just doesn't quite seem fair, does it? The Porsche being so close to getting the Grand Prix start it deserved to have. Even if it hadn't finished the Grand Prix, it would have proven that it's there or thereabouts. But that does prove to me, Tom, that the Porsche definitely has what it takes to be a winning factor in this grid. It just needs a little bit of luck.
It does, and you know, it's a cruel sport, these motor racing sometimes, and you're gonna have your fun days, you have your celebratory days, you're gonna have your really cruel days. But yeah.
Careful, Bruno. Don't chuck it away now, mate. You're in 2nd position. Don't throw that away.
Yeah, well, just going back to what I was saying about Damon Hill, he's one of those drivers, Jade, that has just come onto the grid, and you know, when we see drivers do a really, really, sort of respectable job, Damon Hill just happens to be quick without knowing why he's so quick. He's just one of those drivers that just got into the cockpit. You know when Jim Clark was racing back in the days of Graham Hill? He was one of those drivers that sort of got into the cockpit of a car and happened to be quick without knowing why he was so quick or how he was so quick. He just happened to be. I sort of use Damon Hill as that kind of analogy, you know.
He's very similar in terms of racing style to his father as well. They both seem to have that same kind of tenacity to just find the pace and find the grip. And Damon's definitely one to watch out for the next few years. There is a man who is also one to watch for, Aguri Suzuki. I'm sure that the powers that be at Honda are going to be keeping one eye on him, because obviously there are a lot of Honda-powered teams in Formula 1 in 1990, although there is discussion that there is going to be a limit for 1991 for how many teams can run a certain engine supply, as Fittipaldi tries not to become a hindrance. What that retirement for Warwick does mean, of course, is that the Monteverdis are 10th and 11th, so Chiesa is not only going to outscore his teammate, but he's going to get his first point in his second attempt in the Go Bobbert UK Cup, so that's a good thing. Last lap begins, though, for Aguri Suzuki.
And Martin Brundle has just gone past Mark Blundell into 7th place, so that's Chip Minardi's in the top 7 and on course for a place in the Grand Prix, so very, very well done.
Oh, and that's why! That's why! Oh no! Lego Acela in trouble as well. Mark Blundell pulling off the road. That's devastating bad luck. Now, he will be classified as a finisher, but it doesn't make any difference at all to the Lego Acela team. Now, that's an interesting point, actually. Thinking about it, Paul Warwick, when he retired, did he complete enough laps to be classified as a race finisher? I hope so, because they'll get some prize money for that, even if they don't get the race win that they or the qualification for the Grand Prix that they wanted. That will help them out.
No, I don't think. I think it was at least 5 laps from the end, Jake. And with it being a 35-lap race, they'll need to have completed at least 31. So I doubt that Warwick will be classified, which is a shame because they deserve at least something from this race. As Suzuki is about to complete his final lap.
So down to the final chicane then, and it's going to be Lola Renault once more that booked themselves into a Grand Prix. It's not the first time they've done it in 1990, but here they come again in this brilliant season. Aguri Suzuki takes his first win in the Go Bobbert UK Cup, and that's a Lola 1-2 on the way for them. Finishers all the way through the field. Giacomelli is going to make it a 1-2. It's the first 1-2 of the season as well for a team in the Go Bobbert UK Cup. Fair play to Damon Hill. He pushed it right to the end there to try and split them. But that's BMS Scuderia getting through to the Grand Prix. And this is a tight battle because Ribbs is pushing Martini right to the finish to see if he can get that Real into the Grand Prix for the second race running. But Martini is going to survive and pushes the Minardi across the line. 4th position. So now we know the 3 teams that will get through. Lola, BMS Scuderia, Dallara and Minardi.
And you can't say that those 3 teams don't deserve to be in the Grand Prix because they all do. You know, both Lola's getting both cars home, the Dallaras getting both cars home, Minardi getting both cars home. So you can't really complain, Jake. It's been a very relatively brilliant performances from the teams that have got through. And Zanardi's in trouble.
On the way to the finish! On the way to the finish, Zanardi's going to break down. So Ratzenberger's going to sweep past him. What's happened to Zanardi on the final lap? He's got a gearbox problem. The car has literally seized. On the way home, he's trying to get the car home, but he can't. So Zanardi out of the race before he even gets to the finish. He was only about, well, what's that? 200 yards from the finish. That is absolutely disastrous from his point of view. But it's Suzuki and Giacomelli, a Lola 1-2 from Damon Hill and Pierluigi Martini. Those are the 3 teams then, Lola, Dallara and Minardi, that go through from Ribbs and Katayama. The point scorers are Brundle, Herbert, Chiesa and Leto. Double points haul for Monteverdi. Then Ratzenberger and Zanardi and Ginzani in 13th. Tarquini is 14th from McNish. Fittipaldi, Fangio and Blundell. You were right. An oil leak means that the Porsche sadly is not classified despite running as high as 4th. And then Dalmas, Pirro, Menu, Schumacher, who also retired while battling for second place, was leading at the time of his water leak, in fact. Kathy Muller, Joachim Winkelhock and Mike Thackwell. Retirements from this race. Fastest lap of the race, Aguri Suzuki. He was pretty much flawless today, Tom. It was a race that he was born to win.
It was, and a delight as well for the Japanese fans, you know, seeing the Japanese driver win a pre-qualifying race and qualify for the Grand Prix. That is a very, very good thing indeed. And you know, you can't deny the pace of De Laura's. I mean, Johnny Herbert had his issue, but he still crossed the line in 8th place, so there's more points for him in the GoBobby.UK Cup. And Damon Hill in the Grand Prix later as well, he had a really, really, really good drive, and I cannot wait to see how they do over a Grand Prix distance. We could well see a high attrition rate, as we did in Monaco, where we had so many different drivers in contention for the race win. And if we have seen so much from this pre-qualifying race, the main race itself is expected to be even more exciting.
It's definitely going to be one to watch, and the race is coming up very shortly indeed. So grab yourself a quick drink, and we will be back in about 5 minutes or so time when we continue the quest for the Grand Prix 2 World Championship of 1990 in the Retro Racing Managers League. And of course, in 5 minutes' time, it will be the 5th race of the season. There have been 4 different winners so far in the build-up to this season. We've had Gerhard Berger in the McLaren take the victory. We've had Nelson Piquet in the Benetton. We've had Mika Hakkinen, the surprise new winner, the youngest ever in Formula One, in the Brabham. And last time out at Monaco, it was Ayrton Senna in the McLaren. Are we going to get 5 out of 5?
What music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy. Let me drive. I won't make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind?
That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It is like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm going to give you an engine low to the ground, extra big oil pan that'll cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when you run so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm going to give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm going to shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you got to be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darren Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
I mean, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? I mean, come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, Nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. You sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do. It's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own.
Please let me race.
fine. Then let's race.
So a dramatic end to the pre-qualifying race for Porsche. They are denied a chance to go for the Grand Prix, and it is the three teams from Italy that go through. Lola, who gets through. Sorry, Lola, a British team. I do apologise. Larus Lola with their French backing, and then the two Italian giants, BMS Scuderia, and of course the Minardi team, who are no strangers to a Grand Prix start this year. But it shows that it's getting mighty, mighty close in the pre-qualifying brigade, Tom. It's not going to be too long before we have several teams making the march for the places on the grid. Well, based on the starting grid that we've got for this particular race, the Canadian Grand Prix of 1990, it's looking likely that we could have a fifth, because the front row of the grid is full of drivers who have not won a race this year. It's Tyrrell who grabbed pole position. Jean Alesi has bagged in a quick lap here at Montreal, and he puts the Tyrrell with the Honda engine in pole position. Alongside him is Mauricio Gugelmin in the Leighton House. He goes second fastest. Then it's Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham, already a race winner. Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari, out qualifying both the McLarens. They can be very happy with that. that, Thierry Boutsen in the Williams and Derek Warwick in the Lotus come next. Then it's Gerhard Berger in the McLaren, only 7th on the grid this time, with Riccardo Patrese in 8th. Handling difficulties at McLaren though, Senna and Prost are together on the 5th row of the grid. The first time they've seen each other on the same bit of racetrack since Suzuka 89. Piquet in the 6th row of the grid is there in 11th alongside Michele Alboreto in the Arrows. Then it's Ricard Rydell in the 2nd Tyrrell alongside Alessandro Nannini in the 2nd Benetton. Ivan Capelli is next up alongside Eddie Cheever, and then it's Martin Donnelly alongside Bruno Giacomelli in the leading Lola. Stefano Modena in the Brabham, Adrian Fernandez in the Arrows. Damon Hill is alongside Nicola Larini, Martin Brundle is beside Aguri Suzuki, and then Johnny Herbert and Pierluigi Martini. This is going to be one heck of a thriller, Tom. Well, this is definitely not where they were expecting to start the Canadian Grand Prix from, that's for sure. The red lights are on, and let's see if we go racing in clean fashion here at Montreal. Let's race. The Canadian Grand Prix of 1990 is go. Alesi's got a good start. Hakkinen's got a flyer as well in the Brabham, and he's going to pull up alongside Alesi, no problem at all. And into the lead goes the youngest ever winner in Formula One history. There's damage further back. Looks as though there's been a little bit of contact. We'll have to go back and have another look at it, but there's definitely some drama on the way to the first corner. We'll have another look at it. This is on board with Alesi as the Brabham of Hakkinen sails by, but there's definitely damage further back. It's a fast charging Senna, and there's big damage further back. It looks as though we've got some damage in the middle. It's Alboreto with the damage there in the Arrows, so we'll have to look back at it again, Tom, but it's not a great start for the Arrows. It was Capelli, but he was forced into the Arrows by Rydell. So it was Rydell who actually outbraked himself, nudged the Leightonhouse, and the Leightonhouse cannoned into the back of the Arrows. So that is actually going to be a problem for the Tyrrell team in the long run if there's an investigation into that, because that is a big accident for the team. And that's the first mistake, really, that Ricard Rydell has properly made all the way through the season. And Patrese in the Williams, he's got the McLaren sailing by. That's Berger. Senna made a fantastic start, by the way. He's up from 9th place to 5th and has already left his long-term rival Alain Prost very much down the doldrums. But a big move at the inside for Patrese. Can't quite get through. But Alesi is back in the lead. Alesi has got back through into the lead past Hakkinen. So the Tyrrell leads the way. So the battle is still raging up at the front end of the field. We had a slight technical problem there. I do apologise for those watching along, but we have now got everything back to the way it should be. But we are here having a great battle as the battle continues here at the Canadian Grand Prix 1990. Here is the Brabham, that's Stefano Modena. So Modena in the middle of the field trying to recover after a bit of a difficult start. As the two Benettons are together, that's Piquet and Nannini. Team boss John Munro's not going to be particularly satisfied with their start. With the, you can see there the Roundtree's decals on the back bumper. They're not looking particularly juicy at the moment, are they? 13th and 14th in the race. They definitely need the tide to turn back in their favour. Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell out front sets another new fastest lap at 1:22. And that is the fastest lap of the race so far. But this is what he's been hoping for all season long. A chance to run at the front in the Tyrrell, stretching out a gap. This is great news for him.
Indeed, it is, and he's got a second lead over Hakkinen in second place, who's already won the Grand Prix this season at Imola. And just to correct myself, Thierry Boutsen is in third place, so he's not outside the top 15. So let's both Williams cars in the top 8 now, because Patrese has got himself ahead of Gerhard Berger in the McLaren. So Patresi's next target is Derek Warwick, who's a couple of seconds ahead of him on first, because he's down the inside of Mauricio Gugelmin and off into 6th position.
So Alesi, Hakkinen, Boutsen, Senna, Mansell is your top 5. That's 5 different teams in the top 5 places, and that continues on to Warwick and Gugelmin in 6th and 7th. I've never known this to be so competitive in a Grand Prix season so far. 7 teams in the top 7 places. Alesi in the Tyrrell, Hakkinen in the Brabham, Boutsen in the Williams, Senna in the McLaren, Mansell in the Ferrari, Warwick in the Lotus, and Gugelmin in the Leighton House. He's really the one with the biggest dip of the start, because he was on the front row of the grid, wasn't he? Mauricio Gugelmin did brilliantly in qualifying as Senna bangs in a fastest lap. He obviously wants to try and close up on the Williams in front of him of Thierry Boutsen as Eddie Cheever locks up in the Ligier, and he's going to lose out. There goes Giacomelli, and there goes the Brabham of Modena as well.
I mean, Eddie Cheever overcooked that last chicane there and left him a sitting duck to Giacomelli. And there was another car that went by him. I can't quite remember who it was that got by the American. But yeah, it's quite it's been a good drive. Well, it's not been a good start from Gugelmin, but he's been one of the surprises of the season actually. From what we've seen from him, he nearly got that race win in Monaco, but he's lost another position there to Patrese. So things going from bad to worse for Gugelmin as far as the first 4 laps are concerned. But there's Martin Donnelly as well. Ahead of it, behind Donnelly, is one of the Delaras there. Looks like Johnny Herbert.
It is indeed Johnny Herbert. It's a real shame for the Leighton House team, though, because on paper they've had a very good car with a good start to the season. And certainly over 1 lap, the Leighton House is pretty quick. Oh, that's the Williams in trouble already. That's Boutsen. Boutsen in trouble. So Thierry Boutsen already having a real difficulty in this race, and that's an engine problem. So they dramatically, of course, at the beginning of the season switched from Renault to Honda, but the engine is fast, but it is temperamental, it is unreliable, and Boutsen still motoring around as Mansell goes by into 4th place. But Boutsen is going to be out of this race, unfortunately, in the Williams, and he continues on. Well, he really should be pulling over, to be fair, Tom. This is a little bit naughty from Boutsen.
It is. You don't want to see a car leaving.
Oh, that's the Brabham. That's Hakkinen as well. Goodness me. Well, what's happened there? We need to have a look back and figure out what's happened to Hakkinen. He's had an engine failure and he's been hit by Mansell. Mansell nudged him there. Oh my goodness.
Well, you know, you were saying that Boutsen was being naughty by not pulling off the racetrack. Well, Hakkinen, you could say that's what happens when you don't pull off the racetrack when you're in an ailing car.
Yeah.
Now, that is not Mansell's fault there. Hakkinen should have been pulling off sooner, and this is what happens when you don't pull off the racetrack with an ailing car.
I completely agree. I don't think you could say Mansell had anything he could do about that one. He couldn't really avoid that. So I'm afraid Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham out of the race with an engine failure, but that's definitely a big problem there, and Mika Hakkinen could well get an investigation into that himself. In fact, both drivers, Boutsen and Hakkinen, could well be investigated for that one. He's still going. This is getting ridiculous from Thierry Boutsen. He's trying to get back to the pits, I think.
I mean, this is not good enough from Boutsen. He should know better than this, and he's got cars going past him at the most dangerous point on the circuit.
And there it goes. There goes the engine, and Berger's going to have his go at Prost. Boutsen's trying to get back to the pits, but the engine's just gone. He's circulated the entire course, but I have a feeling that both Boutsen and Hakkinen could well get investigated for their actions there, because as professional drivers, both of them Grand Prix winners, don't forget, they really should know better. They could throw the rulebook at them there, but all of that, look at who's in 2nd place now. Senna has fought his way through the carnage, and he's now in P2, ahead of Warwick in the Lotus.
Well, Christmas seems to be keep on delivering for Derek Warwick, because he has been one of the surprises of the season given his run of results, and this is Patrese looking to replicate another one of those manoeuvres. I think Gugelmin got back ahead of him in all that chaos, so Patrese's going to have to get past Gugelmin again, and this is a move from Mansell on Warwick, and Mansell's down the inside, so 2 Brits swapping places.
And the Ferrari up into 3rd position. That's going to be a positive side for Chris Cavani. Oh, the other one's in trouble, though. The other one's got a problem. It's Prost. Prost is in trouble. The reigning world champion. More problems at Ferrari and Alain Prost. Oh, don't tell me that Williams is going as well. Oh my goodness. The Williams is puffing smoke too. Oh my goodness. Within the space of a couple of laps, the Patrese crashes as the engine locks. Well, the Ferrari's out. The Williams is out. What a disastrous Canadian Grand Prix. And we're only on lap 7.
This is getting ridiculous now. I mean, Patrese did well to pull off at the time of which he did because he only started losing power.
But Prost, come on!
I mean, this is not good enough. I mean, the stewards have to take this very seriously here because Prost is leaving not just oil, but it's becoming.
Oh, it's fire! The car's in fire now.
It's got to pull off now. This is not good enough from Prost. He should know better than this, and he's leaving oil. It's leaving a smoke screen for the drivers, and. You know, this could ending very, very nasty for the drivers on circuit. And I think the stewards is going to have the rule book thrown at Prost for this. And this is just, well, I don't know what to say other than...
Well, Alain Prost pulls the Ferrari off the road. And, well, there's been all sorts of difficulties at Ferrari already this season. But Alain Prost really has bore the brunt of all of it. And you have to say that if this continues for Prost at Ferrari, how long would someone of his magnitude and his reputation stay on at a team like Ferrari? He basically left them after falling out with Ayrton Senna at McLaren last year after their now infamous brawl at Suzuka at the end of the season. But Prost has not really gone to a team where he can win with at the moment, has he? Mansell's still going, of course, in P4, continuing that terrific squabble with Derek Warwick. But, well, we've lost both the Williams cars already. That is incredibly dramatic. We've lost the Brabham of Hakkinen. We've lost both Williams cars of Patrese and Boutsen. And now the Ferrari of Alain Prost. 22 cars still running. And this is such a disaster for the Williams team. They really have really struggled. And obviously, they've made upgrades and they've made performances over the course of the season, as all teams do. But his position as... the captain of the helm at Williams could well be very much under pressure here. And Tova Smith may well be needing to look for another team to go and play with in 1991 if things continue. And obviously the team managers, the way it works is that depending on the race results, they can lose their job within the team. They can lose their positions up at the front end of the squad. And they would have to seek alternatives for the 1991 season. But certainly in 1990, Ferrari haven't started well. Williams were on the podium back in Phoenix, of course. But ever since then, they haven't been able to get their car to the finish. And there's Modena, now in 10th position in the Brabham, looking at the final championship point all of a sudden.
And it's the second race in a row that Williams have not scored any points from this race. Now, both cars failed to finish in Monaco, and then they had a disqualification on both cars, but technical infringements, didn't they? And, well, I just don't know what to say about the current situation that they are in. Tova Smith is most certainly not going to be a very, very happy man after this race with the way it's panned out for his team.
Wow, fascinating situation. And now, of course, we will find out what will happen as a result of those incidents. I can tell you that Race Control have just announced that 3 drivers are under investigation for their conduct of getting off the race circuit, and it's Hakkinen, Prost and Boutsen that are under investigation from the stewards. Now, there's an argument cooking up over this because the Brabham argument is that Mansell shouldn't have hit Hakkinen's car. And obviously, it's difficult to look at, but from what we could see on the pictures there, it's the sense that Mansell didn't realise that... So, hang on, have we got Berger in trouble? Has Berger started to slow? Oh, he's having a battle, that's why. He's having a great race with Gugelmin. And Berger has got through into P5. Now, he was excluded, of course, last time out. So, a fascinating situation. Warwick in P3. So, we will have a look and see how things continue on. But the Lotus there, Derek Warwick in 3rd position in front of Mansell. And then Berger in 5th position in the McLaren. Gugelmin in 6th position. Then Piquet, Nannini, Capelli, Modena, Giacomelli and Rydell.
I was going to say, you know, if Warwick was to get a really strong result here, he could leave the Canadian Grand Prix as the championship leader. Do you think we would have been saying that at the beginning of the season? Derek Warwick leading the Drivers' Championship. I mean, wow.
Fascinating situation, isn't it? But he's definitely looking that way at the moment, with Berger down in 5th and Senna in 2nd, chasing after Alesi. Now, Race Control have come back with another message. They're going to take no further action in the Hakkinen-Mansell incident. So no further action in the Hakkinen-Mansell incident. Hakkinen will not receive a penalty for that.
I'm surprised by that, Jake, because Hakkinen knew that the car was going off, and it was becoming a smokescreen to Mansell, and coming out of a blind turn, especially when you got the barriers there, because the barriers don't do the drivers any favours when it comes to knowing what's ahead of them. So I feel that Hakkinen is trying to wait for it, really. So I'm actually surprised that Stuart took no action to it, because I felt Hakkinen was liable for it. But I'm the commentator, not Stuart, so yeah.
So we're told as well that Race Control have issued a statement that the two drivers who are also being investigated, Alain Prost and Thierry Boutsen, are going to be investigated after the race. Now, I'm assuming that is essentially because, with them no longer being in the race, there's obviously nothing that they can do in terms of anything that will happen in this race. But two drivers of the stature of Prost and Boutsen should know that when their car is ailing and obviously causing a big problem for other drivers with mechanical failure, they should be getting off the race circuit. They should be pulling off. And two drivers of the stature of Prost and Boutsen should know better, I suppose, is the argument they're looking at. This is the battle for victory, though. Jean Alesi is being caught by Ayrton Senna here in Canada. And Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell, well, he's trying to bring the Tyrrell team their first race victory since 1983. And can Jean Alesi become the 5th different race winner in 5 different Grand Prix? Oh, Fernandez pushing it very hard, the Mexican. And of course, we'll be heading to his home race circuit next time out, Adrian Fernandez. Very much part of the deal that he is with at Arrows, bringing some good support to the Mexican fan base. But Senna definitely pushing Alesi, wants the Grand Prix victory and certainly wants to fight to take it away from him now.
And looking further down the field, Bruno Giacomelli, who finished 2nd in the pre-qualifying race earlier today, is running well in 11th place. So could Giacomelli finish in the points in the main race? And given what we've seen so far, Jake, it's a good chance that we could see drivers who had qualified from the GoBobby.UK Cup race salvaging some points.
It's definitely possible. I mean, we've got 3 competitive teams there. You've got Hill running in 20th position. Herbert's running 15th in the BMS Scuderia Italias. So they're doing okay. And then, of course, further back behind them, you've got the Minardis of Martini in 19th and Brundle in 21st. So obviously it's a long way to go in this race. We're only on lap 13 as Senna tries to take more time out of Alesi. This is a fascinating dynamic that we're starting to build between Alesi and Senna. Alesi is certainly starting to look like the young pretender to the crown, doesn't he, of Ayrton Senna. And he's there in the small Tyrrell team, but they are former world champions. Let's not forget the Tyrrell team. They won the world title in 1971 and 73 as a constructor. So they have definitely been able to... I apologise, they won the world title as a constructor in 71. They didn't quite manage it in 73. But certainly a fabulous battle developing here for Tyrrell as they go on the march of their first win for 7 seasons. Although Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian, is the man pushing them. It's a tough position for team boss Sam Hall to be in.
It is, and I'd be interested to find out what fuel loads Alesi and Senna are on. I would think that they're on similar fuel levels at the moment. Let's have a look and see if Senna's fuel load is quite small or large.
Well, there's Larini in the Ligier going through on the BMS Dallara. Alesi is 1.8 seconds ahead of Senna. He's got about 10 laps worth of fuel in the can. And Senna's got 7, so he is going to go lighter. Now, Senna's going for the undercut here on the Tyrrell. The battle for 3rd should be fairly interesting as well, because Warwick is on 13 laps of fuel. Mansell on 14, as you can see there. So Mansell will try and go 1 lap longer, I guess, than Warwick. Berger's on a heavy fuel load, though, in the McLaren, so he might be pushing this to a one-stop strategy, which is brave from Berger, but we've seen it work before. Piquet trying to catch him now in the Benetton. He's now in P6 out of all of this, and his teammate Nannini is there in 7th, so the Benettons do look like they're going to score points after all. Gugelmin is on a one-stop strategy. That's why he's going backwards down the field, because he's got a heavy Leighton House there, and is down in 8th position. Johnny Herbert out of the race, so something's happened to Johnny Herbert. We'll have a look, and that is an engine failure. So problems there for the BMS Scuderia. Johnny Herbert running as high as 15th in the Canadian Grand Prix. And he's a talent for the future for sure, but sadly in this race, he is out of it.
Hello, Jake. We have brought you some poutine up from the Tyrrell garage purely because we know how bad you are with the commentator's curse. So the deal is you have this, you don't mention a Lacey, we win the race, we're all good, right? Sorted, yeah? Sorted.
Oh, Sam there. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So just looking at the moment that Giacomelli is now in 10th position ahead of Ivan Capelli on Modena in 9th place behind Mauricio Gugelmin. So just looking at Jean Alesi at the moment, is 1.5 seconds clear of Ayrton Senna in 2nd position, with Derek Warwick being kept company by Nigel Mansell behind him. And Gerhard Berger and Mauricio Gugelmin, as Jake's mentioned, are on one-stop strategies. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep their pace up in comparison to the likes of Alesi, Senna, Warwick and Mansell, who are doing seemingly 2 stops. Johnny Herbert was one of the first pre-qualifying drivers in this race to drop out as well. So it's such a shame there for Emma Featherstone, who has only Damon Hill left in the running in the Canadian Grand Prix. Damon Hill outside the top 15 at the moment. And the last time I saw, I think it was down in 20th place, but may have gained a place because of Herbert's retirement. So he could well be in 19th position, is the 30-year-old.
Honestly, trust Sam Hall to be the man to trip over my microphone wire. He's knocked it out on the way out of the box. I do apologise there, everybody. I suddenly.
Don't worry, Jake. I've kept the fans.
You've done well. You've done well there. I just honestly, Sam, he knows exactly when to come in, but he also knows exactly when to screw it up. So he's tripped me over and knocked out the microphone cable. It's okay, folks. We got it sorted. God bless Sam Hall. Anyway, we crack on with the 1990 Canadian Grand Prix. We need some new cables, I think, for the remainder of the season. We'll get some, hopefully, in time for Mexico. Alesi, 1.4 seconds ahead of Senna. The battle for third place raging between 2 Brits, Derek Warwick in the Lotus and Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. And it's definitely looking particularly strong from a lot of these guys in the field now. There's Alesi having his run in front of Senna, but Senna trying to undercut him, and we're getting close towards the pit stops. Obviously, it'll be an interesting one for the drivers, depending on how they go into the race, but a lot of the drivers, they tend to pit early and then go slightly longer in the medium stint, as Fernandez gets his move on Ricard Rydell in the Tyrrell. So this could be a fascinating battle, couldn't it, Tom? It really could.
It could. I was just going to say, Rydell looks as though he dropped quite a bit back. Just looking at the sector times at the moment, it could well be the fact that Rydell just got on the marbles as Fernandez got past him. No, I think Rydell's still there. I think it's just that he lost ground because Fernandez had the high ground into the right-hander in that particular part of the racetrack. So Senna, is the gap between him and the Alesi is just sort of stagnating at the moment.
Well, we're hearing that there is another investigation going on down in race control. And now, this is relating to the lap 1 incident at the start, which saw Michele Alboreto fall to the tail of the field with wing damage. Apparently, Ricard Rydell is under investigation for his involvement with Ivan Capelli and Michele Alboreto. Now, if you remember on the very first lap, Tom, essentially Ricard Rydell locked up, hit the back of the Leighton house, and essentially used him as a snooker ball. He cannoned into the back of Alboreto's arrows. And there's Chiva. Nice move on Capelli. So the Ligier definitely starting to gain ground now. That'll keep team boss Dave Goddard happy as Eddie Chiva gets his way up into 11th position.
Yeah, and just going back to what you were saying about the incident with Rydell at the start. It was a concertina collision between him, the Leighton house, and the arrows, I think it was Alboreto, wasn't it, at the start, that forced Alboreto into the pits for a new rear wing. And it's very difficult to say on it, Jake, because the pack is, as ever in this racetrack, are going to be tightly bunched together. So I think for a lap 1 incident as such as that, I think it would be very, very harsh to penalise any driver on this occasion. Racing incident on my part.
So Derek Warwick in the Lotus with the Renault engines, trying to charge after Ayrton Senna with the Honda engine. And there's the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell. It certainly seems as though Mansell is getting all of the joy at Ferrari. Not that there is much joy to be had at the team at the moment. And I think both Chris Cavani and Nigel Mansell would be the first to admit that, the way things are currently progressing. But certainly at the moment, Warwick is doing his best to try and close up. And into the pits comes Senna. Senna comes in first. Now that's interesting. I thought that, yeah, well, obviously Senna's trying to go for the undercut. I do apologise, but Senna's been burning fuel quite quickly in order to try and close up on Jean Alesi. So Senna is going for, now at the moment, that looks like a 2-stop strategy, but he's only putting 20 laps of fuel in there. Is Ayrton Senna going for a 3-stop strategy, Tom?
Could well be, or he could go for a sort of a long last stint. For the next time he comes into the pit. So he's rejoined ahead of his teammate Gerhard Berger. So maybe the last seconds or the left fractions of a second could well be the difference between Senna putting 5 laps of fuel in, which would have got him behind Gerhard Berger and Alessandro Nannini. So it could well pay off for Senna being given that extra track position. Now, Alesi's got to go like clockwork here, because even though he may be on lighter fuel load, Senna's going to be on much quicker tyres. There's a couple more drivers coming to the pits. I think Modena and Martini are coming from I think Modena was in 9th place actually, because Giacomelli has moved up into 9th position as Alboreto looks as though it's just locked up there into turn 2. He's ahead there of Damon Hill, who's having a respectable drive at the moment, the sole surviving Dallara.
So there are 5 retirements. Johnny Herbert in the Dallara, Prost in the Ferrari, both Williams cars, Patrese and Boutsen unfortunately, and Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham, who won so brilliantly at the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, of course, 2 races ago. But here we are with Jean Alesi, Derek Warwick and Nigel Mansell in the top 3. And if any one of them wins the Grand Prix, we will have 5 different winners from the first 5 races. Piquet and Senna are next up, 4th and 5th. And then it's Alessandro Nannini as Modena locks up. So Modena locks up, and that's a big moment from his point of view. Berger is in 7th behind Alessandro Nannini. Gugelmin in 8th place in the Leighton House, going for a 1-stop strategy. Giacomelli in the Larousse is in 9th place. Brilliant performance from him so far. Eddie Cheever going beautifully as well in the Ligier in P10. And then it's Capelli in the Leighton House, struggling for grip. I wonder if both of those cars are going 1-stop. Then Rydell in the Tyrrell, who is under investigation from race control. Then it is Donnelly in 13th in the Lotus, Suzuki in the 2nd Larousse Lola, then Alboreto in the Arrows. Then in 16th place we have Damon Hill in the Dallara, Modena in the Brabham, Brundle in the Minardi, and then Larini, Fernandez and Martini are next up. Now Martini is way down at the back of the field now. I'm not quite sure what's happened. Now we're being told that Topher Smith looks like he's actually turned off his monitors, the Williams boss. He's now sitting with his feet up, watching the Grand Prix while eating, was it poutine, I'm being told here? Goodness me. They do go for some lavish tastes in the world of Grand Prix racing, don't they?
Well, I don't know what the Canadians eat over
No.
Montreal. Probably similar to what those in America do.
I think poutine is a very Canadian dish, actually, from what I'm told.
I've not tried it myself anyway. But just to fill those in, the 4 drivers who have won races so far, the main races so far this season. Gerhard Berger won in Phoenix, Nelson Piquet won in Interlagos, Mika Hakkinen, who's out of the Grand Prix already, won at Imola, and Senna, who's still running in the race in 4th position, who won out last night in Monaco. So if Lacey, Warwick and all Mansell were to win, that would make it 5 winners from 5, as Dave has already mentioned.
So Nannini has been into the pits and dropped to 13th behind Donnelly and Suzuki. There's Mansell running in 3rd place in the Ferrari. Warwick is starting to get away from him now, but Mansell still... Oh, there's Fernandez. Well, that's not gone well for Fernandez, and it nearly trips up the race leader. Jean Alesi just comes around the outside, and that's another driver in trouble. Fernandez with the car ablaze. Now, he's not pulled off the circuit either, really. Now he is. Well, I think Fernandez, he's just realised that the car is in trouble, so Fernandez will now pull off the circuit. Senna bangs in a fast one as he tries to close up on that man, Nelson Piquet. And so Ayrton Senna is... oh, no, he's got away from Piquet. I do apologise. So it's Berger who's closing up on Piquet. Senna's trying to close up on Nigel Mansell. This is what you said he needed to do, Tom. He needs to get away, and essentially, now that's a much safer position for Fernandez to pull off the circuit, showing Prost and Boutsen a trick or two. But this is what you said Senna needed to do, Tom. He needed to get into clear air, and he needed to start pounding in some fast laps in order to try and gain some ground on the 3 cars in front.
And with the pace that Senna is going at the moment, if Alesi wants to stop now, Senna would make the undercut work.
Oh!
And Martin Donnelly has pulled off in the Lotus. What a shame.
Well, again, at least it's in a safe position as Jean Alesi pits from the lead. Here we go. Alesi pits. Now, this is crucial. Donnelly, sadly, in the Lotus is out of the race, but that's going to hand the lead of the Grand Prix, I think, for the first time in his career, to Derek Warwick. So Derek Warwick in the Lotus is going to take the lead as one retires, the other one continues. Mansell is second in the Ferrari now. Senna should go through to third. He does indeed. There goes Senna. So Senna has jumped Alesi. Now, if Senna is indeed on a 3-stop strategy, he's got to bring out some big guns. He's got to go for some qualifying laps now to try and stretch out the gap between himself and Alesi.
Now, I'll be interested to have a look at the fuel load from Warwick and Mansell. Now, I think we'll expect Warwick and Mansell to be on 2-stop structures. Did we have a check, Jake,
We
on
certainly
Alesi's
can.
fuel load?
So Mansell and Warwick, as you say, are into the pit lane imminently. Senna's on 15 laps of fuel. Alesi's going a lot further, another 8 laps further into the race. So I think Alesi's on a 2-stop strategy. Senna could even be going for a 3-stop strategy.
Behind them as well, PK just came in for a pit stop as well. So he come out behind Ricardo Rydell in 10th position. And going back to what we were saying about Alesi, he'll be on slightly fresher tyres than Senna. And with him going on a further second stint than the Brazilian, this could fall into Alesi's hands, depending on the track position which Senna will have by the time he completes his second stop. And this is Nannini down the inside of PK. Now, Nannini passing his team. I'm actually surprised that the Benetton boss has allowed Nannini to go past PK because both of them are on different strategies. And with PK battling with the likes of Warwick and Mansell potentially, I think the boss of Benetton will rather see PK ahead of the Italian driver.
Well, Nannini has a slightly lighter fuel load than PK's Benetton, so perhaps this is tactical to play the long game here with Nannini out in front of PK. The last thing he needs is to be held up by his Brazilian teammate, even though he is a 3-time world champion. Senna continues on his way in third as he pushes his way further forward. And Eddie Chiva trying to make his bid for his teammate Larini. This could get interesting. Oh dear, that got close, didn't it?
It did, though. You don't want to be. We saw in the Zach speeds in the pre-qualifying race earlier where Ginzani got together with Vingerhock and took Vingerhock out of the race at the hairpin. So it could have ended in tears though between the Senna Monteverdi drivers, Larini and.
So into the pits comes the race leader. Derek Warwick hands the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix of 1990 over to Nigel Mansell. It was great while it lasted, but now Warwick is in the pits. And it's a good stop, 8.3 seconds. That should see him out in about 8th position. He might actually get out in front of Gugelmin. Gugelmin is coming down the pit lane now, though, so there goes that idea. And Warwick rejoins in P6 in front of Giacomelli, who seems to be going into the pits himself. Yes, Giacomelli in the LaRousse Lola now pits in from P7. That's a very impressive run from the Italian.
Yes, indeed. He's having a fantastic race. I look forward to see if the LaRousse of Giacomelli finds in the points come the end of the race. And Derek Warwick coming out behind Richard Gugelmin. Now remember, Gugelmin is on a 1-stop strategy by the looks of things. So Warwick will need to try and get past Gugelmin to put himself back into play. Get ahead of Mansell when Mansell comes in for his start. So with Warwick on fresher tyres than Mansell, this will play into Warwick's hands. And just to correct myself about Larini and Chiva, it's the Ligiers, not the Monteverdis. So I was getting myself mixed up between the two teams. They've got similar liveries, haven't they?
That's very true. Now here's Alesi, who is only 3 seconds down the road from Senna. He's on a heavier fuel load as into the pits comes Mansell. So Senna takes the lead. Alesi gets into second. 2.5 seconds is the gap between them. Mansell and Ferrari need a good stop to have a chance of a podium today at the Canadian Grand Prix. 8.3, that'll do nicely. Now where's he going to get out? Berger's into third. He's on a one-stop strategy. Gugelmin will go up to fourth. He's on a one-stop strategy. Where will he get out in relation to Warwick? Warwick sails by. There we go. Lotus have managed to get the switch and managed to beat Ferrari out of the pit lane.
It was easier said than done there for Warwick. He's done a very, very good job. Now he's 1.5 seconds behind Gugelmin, so he's not getting held up too much. He's done really well. And this is Gerhard Berger as well. Now remember, Berger is on a one-stop strategy, just like Gugelmin is. So by the time Berger comes in for his start, where will he fall back into play in regards to Senna and Alesi? Because Senna and Alesi have still got at least another pit stop to go. And that will come after Berger's sole stop. So we could see Gerhard Berger have a stint at the front and Senna and Alesi paying catch up. And as you can see, the two Bennettons there, John Munro's drivers.
Oh, it's Brundle! So there goes the Minardi. Brundle out of the race. So Martin Brundle, suspension failure on the front right. And that's one of the Minardis out of the race. Fortunately, he realised it was happening, pulled off pretty quickly. And game over for Martin Brundle. Senna and Alesi go through without incident. That's good news for them as they continue on their way forward.
So that's the second of the cars that have gone through from the qualifying race. And this is Derek Warwick behind Gugelmin. Warwick tucks in behind, didn't want to risk it into turn one. Now he could do it on the best back straight before that harsh came. We've seen a lot of overtakes there, so we could see what it do to pass in that complex. So that was so back to what I was saying about Martin Brundle, the second driver from the Go Bobby WK Cup qualifying cars to retire from this race. And this is Eddie Cheever on Damon Hill in the battle for 13th.
So the battle continues. Here's the charge further down the field from Ligier as Larini tries to get through on the inside of his teammate Cheever as they both close up on the Scuderia of Damon Hill, the Scuderia Dallara. But the Ligiers are obviously teams that were formerly in the top 10 in the sport of Grand Prix racing. Obviously, it's the top 10 teams at the end of 1990 that will stay on in the highest tier of the Grand Prix world. The others will all be automatic qualifiers for pre-qualifying. So that's what they will basically be fighting for in 1991. Here is Ayrton Senna's teammate, Gerhard Berger, trying to charge his way back into a race-winning contention after he blotted his copybook quite severely in Monaco. He was lucky, a lot of people said, not to get a race ban for what happened to him last time out. But he has put that all behind him. He's on a one-stop strategy, very different to his teammate Ayrton Senna, who still looks like he's on a three-stopper to me. Although, as you say, Tom, they could switch it up. He could go heavy for the final stint. But that does give us a bit of an indication of just how impressive Jean Alesi's drive currently is, because he's keeping Senna honest and he's still within 3 seconds of him.
He is, and as long as he can stay in that window, at least he can put pressure on some form of, will put some pressure on Senna, I should say. And whilst just saying that, I think Mantle's got by Gugelmin, just as I speak, and Damon Hill lost 2 positions to the Ligier cars of Cheever and Larini, so Damon Hill beginning to go backwards and begin to lose some pace by the looks of things.
Well, the 2 McLarens are doing okay, 1 and 3 at the moment. And as you're absolutely right, Mansell has indeed got past Gugelmin. The one-stop strategy does look counterproductive, doesn't it? Because you just got to keep those tyres working for the entirety of the race. And the one-stop strategy, it's definitely not quite working out for the likes of Gugelmin or Berger. And Senna being brave with this potential, we think it could be even a 3-stop strategy from Ayrton Senna. Could well be a bit of a curveball to throw into the field. There's Berger. Close in behind Alesi. And that's Mansell! Oh no! A big problem for the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell. It looked as though he had mechanical problem leading up to that. Gearbox again. So neither Ferrari is going to make it to the finish yet again. And Nigel Mansell, a great chance of a podium gone.
And they'll still be behind, of all teams, Eurobron, which we said before the race. Pretty criminal for Ferrari to be in that position. And this is turning into, you know,
well,
it's a chaotic season, to say the least, for Ferrari.
It certainly is. I mean, they've got one more race until upgrades can happen, which is the Mexican Grand Prix. And it's going to be a very long season, the way things are currently going for the Ferrari team. But Senna out in front, Alesi, Berger, Warwick, Gugelmin, Capelli and Rydell Piquet is in 8th place now in front of his teammate Nannini, so they've swapped places again at Benetton, and Giacomelli running there solidly in P10 in front of Modena, Chiva, Larini, Hill, Martini. And then we've got in 16th place behind them is Alboreto, and Suzuki in the Lola is down in 17th. Only 17 cars remaining in the Canadian Grand Prix with 40 laps remaining.
Mansell's retirement has given Warwick some fresh air now. He can breathe clear and focus on his target next on Berger, because in fact Berger will be coming in soon, won't he? So Berger won't be as much a target for Warwick, because all Warwick will need to focus on is his own race actually, but he's quite some way off Senna and Alesi, so it'll be interesting if Warwick can go quite long on his second stint. I didn't quite see how long he is going in comparison to Senna and Alesi. I expect him to be going longer than Senna and Alesi, because he went longer on the first stint than the top two. So it'll be interesting to see what Warwick's fuel load is like at the moment, Jake.
Absolutely. So Senna obviously out in front, and he's only got a handful of laps to come in. Probably in the next 4 laps or so, Senna will be back in the pits. Alesi has got at least a dozen more laps out on circuit. So you've got to say, the way things currently stack up, it is looking more and more increasingly likely, Tom, that the man in contention for the victory here is not Ayrton Senna, it's actually Jean Alesi.
Indeed, I'm just thinking with Senna's getting held up in a bit of traffic at the moment. It looks like Suzuki and Alboreto are beginning to get in the way of Senna, which will very much play into Alesi's hands. Although, having said that, Alesi will need to negotiate those back markers, as Senna is doing so. But, you know, this is part of racing sometimes, Jake, and this is something of which you've got to deal with as a Grand Prix driver. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, it can get in the way, but these are the best drivers in the world. If they can handle it, then they can handle it.
So down the back straight, we've got Rydell battling with the Benettons here. This is pretty epic as Piquet makes his move on the inside of Ricard Rydell, and he gets through. So Piquet manages to get himself up into P7 now past the Swede. Here's Gerhard Berger running in 3rd position in the McLaren. Rydell's about to lose out to Nannini now, so Nannini gets through, and that's both the Benettons then into 7th and 8th past the Tyrrell of the Swede Ricard Rydell. Berger still trying to hustle in behind the 2 leaders as Senna dodges the traffic, but this is definitely going to cost him considerable time trying to lap the back markers. He's got Martini to lap next. Here's Nannini about to lose out again to Rydell. Rydell has to back out of it. He was lucky there.
Was, and the Benetton getting by the field, it looked pretty slam dunk over there. I wonder if Rydell's struggling a little bit. He's not having as smooth a race as Alesi is at the moment. I mean, Alesi's just keeping Senna very, very busy. And with Alesi's extra laps of fuel, this is going to play into his hands come the end of the race, because he's going to be on fresher rubber than Senna will be. Although we need to see what strategy Senna will be on. Now, I would think that Senna could well switch to a 2, but it wouldn't surprise me he ends up going on a 3, Jake, as anticipated.
It's definitely looking interesting, isn't it? As here comes the Leighton House of Gugelmin. Now, they must be getting close to the one-stop window. Well, no, Gugelmin's gone even further into the race than I thought he might. So he's going to be out there for still quite a considerable length of time. What about Berger? He can't be long for the pits. In fact, no, he's not. But he's lapping good, consistent, solid paces, Berger. He still has an outside bet of a podium, because don't forget Warwick's got to pit again. The Leighton House cars are doing okay, though, in 5th and 6th. I think it's not just Gugelmin who's on a one-stop. I think Capelli is as well. But Capelli is going a little shorter into the race. So this could be a fascinating duel for the final few points positions, especially if the attrition rate is high in the top 5. The Leighton Houses could actually get a lot more from this race than they thought they might. But the McLarens are still in the top 3. Senna and Berger, they haven't actually been able to get both cars to the finish in a decent position yet in the same race. They've had either one of them gets it or both of them have difficulties. But Senna leads the way, Alesi 2nd, Berger 3rd, Warwick 4th, Gugelmin 5th from Capelli, Piquet, Nannini, Rydell and Giacomelli, who is having a terrific race in P10. Oh, that's the Rini. That's the Rini in the Ligier. He's gone.
Yeah, I was just going to say Damon Hill got by him, so I didn't know whether Larini had a problem or whether it was just a genuine overtake from Damon Hill. But That's a shame for Dave Goddard. That's one of his cars gone. Eddie Cheever, the only one left in 12th position.
Well, with Nicola Larini out of the race, it's the car that was actually behind Cheever that has the mechanical problem, of course. So we'll have to see if Cheever can make it to the flag and get some points on the board for Ligier. They've outscored Ferrari this year, which is unusual, that's for sure. What if Ferrari ended up in pre-qualifying in 1991? Doesn't bear thinking about, does it?
To be honest, even if Ferrari were to be in pre-qualifying, they'd probably end up dominating it, to be honest with you, which would almost feel like a waste of time. It's like, going down from, the top tier of football into a second tier as like a really strong team, and you just end up dominating that second division, won't you? So, yeah, it's very unusual, for a team like Ferrari with so much history, the most successful team in the sport of all time, having to pre-qualify, and this is Alesi trying to get past Alboreto.
Well, Senna doing fine out in the lead of the race, but not fine enough. That's the key factor here for the McLaren driver. He's not long for the pit lane. It's not coming in on this lap, the McLaren. It'll be the lap after this one, I'm sure, because that tank is running pretty empty. Alesi, though, is looking good in the Tyrrell Honda, as it looks to me as though that car could go the distance here in the Canadian Grand Prix. Senna has not had it all his own way this year. The only race he has finished this year has actually been the Monaco Grand Prix, although I should point out it is the only race he's finished all year, but he did win it. So Senna definitely still up for the title in 1990. But Berger is keeping it very honest at the moment as well, as the car continues to make its way around this Montreal circuit. But the battle is definitely getting pretty tense out there. Here's Nannini having another good, solid afternoon's driving at the moment. The Benettons not quite on the pace that they were at the start of the year, and certainly not from Piquet, the race that we saw from him in Brazil. But the cars are definitely running fairly strongly at the moment, with both cars solid. The Ford engine is not quite the same horsepower, and certainly not as competitive as the Honda or the Ferraris, but I tell you what, they do finish races. That's the big difference.
Indeed, and Warwick's gap to Berger is coming down slightly, but not massively at the moment. Warwick is currently just under 3.4 behind Berger in third place. And it won't be too long before Berger comes in, so Warwick will be on a longer stint actually than, well, I say a longer stint, Berger still hasn't stopped yet, but Warwick will be making his stop after Berger. So can Berger put in some quick laps after he comes out from his pit stop? At the moment with his pace, he'd come out behind Gugelmin, and I think he won't be in too much traffic, which will benefit Berger a lot. Senna goes past Damon Hill, no problem there. Before that dangerous complex there, we were speaking earlier, Jake, about possibly reprofiling, and Senna's in the pits.
So here we go. This is Senna's second stop. But is it the second of 3, or is it the final pit stop? Because we are just past half distance. It would be a big gamble to go all the way to the end. And look, he is not going to make it to the end. He is going 3 stops. So Senna's got to pit again.
Well, I say I'm surprised. I'm not, because I've been on the heavier fuel load. I mean, to be honest, with Berger and Gugelmin on the heavier fuel loads, I don't think it's quite paid out as well as people might think, because being on the 2 or on the 3 is the better strategy for this racetrack, with it being a full throttle, and you don't want to be a sitter duck when you're on a heavy fuel load and other drivers going past you on lighter fuel loads. So in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, Jake, so feel free to argue against what I'm going to say here, being on a 2 or 3 stop is the better way to go about it here at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve.
Fascinating situation, but yes, the car is clearly not at the same speed and capacity if it's going on a one-stop strategy. This man is a dark horse, isn't he? Derek Warwick, currently sat in third place in the Lotus. You can't really count the Lotus team out. They started the year, I think it's fair to say, rather horrifically, but they've stuck at it. They changed engines, they've got the Renault engines in, and the car is just steadily banking points. They're not winning all the time, and they're certainly not looking like the dominant force that McLaren is slowly becoming, but they're definitely banking those points, and it's going to help them as they continue to move forward. Now here's Gugelmin. Oh, goodness me. A big breath there as Gugelmin dives around the Minardi, and into the pits comes Berger. Berger is in the pits in the McLaren, sorry. Now that's a long stop, but that is because he's going all the way to the finish now. So let's see, and it looks as though the Leighton House team are getting ready for a pit stop as well. That'll be Capelli, I think, coming in. So Capelli indeed does come in, and it'll be Gugelmin that comes in shortly after.
Yeah, and Berger just coming out in 5th place ahead of PK. So Berger has got himself into some clean air, and as Capelli is coming in for his stop. You say he was on a one-stop strategy like Berger and Gugelmin was, if that is his first stop. He's dropping out of the top 10 at the moment as we speak. But yeah, this is a Lacey here who is coming up to lap the Delara of Damon Hill. Can he edge out a gap? I mean, with the gap with Senna under 22 seconds, it's not enough for a Lacey to keep hold of the lead. But when he does come in for his final stop, in fact, I'd be interested to know if he's going to be on a 2-stop. Now, if he's going to be on a 2-stop, that is going to play very much into his hands for later on in the race.
So now we have to try and figure out if Senna has got enough grunt in that McLaren to make up a pit stop, because that is essentially what this boils down to. If Senna has any chance of winning the Canadian Grand Prix, he's got to hope that either the Tyrrell has a mechanical problem or that he's got pace enough in that car to make up a pit stop, because that's what he's going to lose out to Alesi. Alesi has driven beautifully here this afternoon, because the car does genuinely look like it's got pace to go the full distance with some time in hand. So the Tyrrell does actually look very competitive indeed. Rydell in the pits. Alboreto locks up at the hairpin. He was lucky there, to be fair. And the Arrows does continue on in front of Aguri Suzuki, who is the last man but one on the racetrack now. Martini down at the back of the field. I think he had a mechanical problem of some kind in the Minardi. Now here's Senna. He's caught up to Warwick in the Lotus. Look at the straight line speed difference. Has Warwick got a problem? He does. Warwick's got an electrical problem. Can he make it back to the pits in time?
It is, and it's not good fortunes there for Warwick. And I was just going to say, Senna took 8/10 of a second out of Alesi's lead on the first sector alone.
Alesi had a throttle problem. Alesi in the pits again. That's unscheduled. That's not scheduled for Alesi.
But they've refueled the Tyrrell right to the end. So Alesi's still very much in play for the race victory as Derek comes in with his electrical problem. So it's all kicking off now, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's definitely hampered the Tyrrell battle a little bit, because that has wrecked the strategy a little bit. Warwick back in the pits. They've reset the car. So that is big stuff. And Gugelmin rejoins directly. Well, Alesi rejoins directly in front of Gugelmin. So that was pretty dramatic from Alesi's point of view. But they've had to shake up the strategy a little bit there. But that was so fortunate that they managed to catch it in time. And Alesi and the Tyrrell can continue. The problem is now, though, Alesi is 13 seconds back from Senna. Senna can keep pushing. If he can gain the time that he needed on Alesi, then he could still win this.
But then another driver to look out for at the moment is Gugelmin. Now, I'm just thinking, when Senna comes in for his final stop, he's going to join behind Gugelmin, because Gugelmin has made his own stop of the race, and Senna's doing a 3-stop. So by the time Senna comes in for his final stop, unless he can put out some blinder of laps, is he going to rejoin ahead of Alesi and Gugelmin when he completes the stop? These have to be qualifying laps now, Jake, because if Senna comes out behind Alesi and Gugelmin, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for him to pass on the circuit. Even with what we've seen so far today, with the similar amount of power that Senna's got in comparison to Alesi and Gugelmin, it's going to be very, very tricky. So this is the Alesi here. We've got a margin of half a second over Gugelmin, who's behind him at the moment. The Senna is continuing, by the looks of things, extending the gap to Alesi. So do keep an eye on the times. And when Senna was coming in for his last stop, he's extended the gap between him and Alesi by another 4/10. So let's see if Senna can pull out even more of a margin on the Frenchman through the second sector. I'll keep an eye on that.
Well, let's not forget, of course, that Senna he's obviously going pretty quickly out there at the moment, but if he comes out of the pit lane behind Alesi, it's not game over for Senna at all, because he'll be out on fresh tyres, still a competitive fuel load, but Alesi will be on old tyres. So Senna does have a chance now, perhaps even more so than Alesi did long term, because Senna can make his pit stop, only being a few seconds behind as Gugelmin pits in from P3. Senna is now the man holding the keys to victory here, because even if he gets out behind Alesi, he'll be on fresher tyres than the Frenchman, so he's still got a good chance of making this come to him.
He just kept an eye on the gap. Senna extended the gap by 4 tenths in sector 2 and another 3 tenths in sector 3. So total, that's 1.1 seconds is extended on Alesi in the last lap alone.
That didn't sound too healthy in the Scuderia Dallara of Damon Hill, running in 15th place, about to be lapped by Alesi in the Tyrrell, who has lost some time, Alesi. Alesi's lost time there. He was a good 13 seconds back. He's now all of a sudden 16 seconds back. I wonder if he's lost time in the traffic trying to get around the Minardi of Pierluigi Martini, because Alesi definitely losing time he didn't need to lose there. Berger in 3rd place after his pit stop. Piquet in 4th in the Benetton. Warwick in the Lotus in 5th. That's really hurt their race now. Nannini in 6th from Gugelmin, Giacomelli, Modena and Capelli. And I'm being told from the race control, Tom, that the investigation has actually started early into Thierry Boutsen and Alain Prost for their incidents on track, failing to get off the racetrack in a safe time. Oh, Alesi's hit What happened there, Tom?
Well, it's just to say, Alesi tried to get by the Dallara Damon Hill, and it looks as though that Damon Hill misread which way Alesi was going to go, and Alesi just ploughed into the back of him.
Well, it looks to me as though the Tyrrell might have escaped that one, but certainly the Dallara of Damon Hill, he's going to have to come into the pits and he will drop to the back of the field. But that was genuinely a misunderstanding from Damon Hill. He was looking in his mirrors, wasn't he, to try and figure out which way Alesi went, and he misinterpreted the situation completely there. So Alesi went straight into the back of the Dallara, didn't have any time to react at all to the Englishman, and I'm afraid to say that Damon Hill was playing a little bit silly there.
He did fail, and it's cost Alesi even more time now, and Nannini's in trouble.
Well, mechanical failure for the Benetton. It spits him into a spin. The engine has failed, and so the back wheels lock. He goes into a spin at the same place that we lost Mansell. So Nannini is now out of the race. That's one of the Benettons gone. So that promotes Modena to 8th place, Capelli to 9th, and Shiva in the Ligier back into the points again. So they really are dropping like flies now, but there are only 15 cars remaining in this Grand Prix now, and only 10 of them can score points. So that's bad news for Benetton. One of their cars has gone. And, well, bitter disappointment there for Alessandro Nannini.
One driver who's having a cracking race as well, Jake, is Bruno Giacomelli in the Lola. And he's behind Gugelmin at the moment. Gugelmin just made a his pit stop, actually. But Giacomelli has had a brilliant day today.
Well, the stewards have obviously deemed that they've sent a note out to the teams. There is no further action to be taken by Damon Hill. I think they have stated there would have been if Alesi's Tyrrell had got damage. But as the Scuderia Dallara came off worse and actually had to come to the pit lane and drops to the back of the field as a result of all of that, then they will take no further action, clearly deeming that the punishment has fit the crime on that occasion.
Yeah, well, I think with penalties as well, Jay, it's whether or not it's caused damage or not, it's a dangerous collision, and it's what it does warrant an investigation. As Warwick has made a move down the inside of PK, and a brilliant move there from Warwick.
Well, we could hear a protest, obviously, after the race, because Tyrrell will not be particularly happy about that decision, especially if it has caused damage to the Tyrrell that we haven't seen. But Alesi is still going at a fair rate of knots. He's still closing in on Senna, but obviously if it has impeded the Tyrrell in any way, in terms of the momentum for Jean Alesi, then they could argue that there is perhaps an investigation to be done after the race. They can, of course, protest the decision. Any team is willing to protest any decision. They are perfectly welcome to do so. But it's a fascinating battle up at the front end of the field. Senna leading the way from Alesi by 17 seconds, with Senna due to pit in again. Alesi, despite having a slight throttle problem, they accelerated the pit stop, changed the strategy quickly, and got Alesi out in second place. But he doesn't have to pit again. Senna does. Berger in third place doesn't have to pit again. He's on a one-stop strategy as Senna comes into the final chicane, closing up on Alboreto in the arrows to lap him. Fourth place is Derek Warwick in the Lotus after an issue of his own, electrical problems. They have reset the car, so he still finds himself in fourth. Fifth is Piquet in the Benetton, the three-time world champion and the winner of the Brazilian Grand Prix earlier this year. Then it is Mauricio Gugelmin in the Leighton House in front of Giacomelli in the LaRousse Lola, who's just pounding around in seventh place doing a grand job. Some big points coming their way. Eighth place for Stefano Modena in the Brabham. Ninth is Capelli in the Leighton House, and the final point currently is going the way of Ligier and Eddie Chiva.
So Alesi just keeping the gap respectable at the minute. He did lose 4 tenths of a second in sector 2 of the last lap. He didn't lose any more time in sector 3. So just looking at the gap now, he's lost half a second to Senna in the first sector of this lap already, Jake. He's not even held up in traffic, so Alesi's lost time somewhere in that first sector.
Well, there could be some interesting discussions after the race then, with Alesi suddenly losing pace. Berger in third, Warwick in fourth, Piquet in fifth place, Gugelmin in P6, Giacomelli in P7 from Modena, then Capelli, Chiva, Rydell, Alboreto, Suzuki, Martini and Hill. They are the only remaining runners in the 1990 Canadian Grand Prix. We've lost Nannini, Larini, Mansell in the Ferrari, Brundle in the Minardi, Donnelly in the Lotus, Fernandez in the Arrows, Herbert in the Dallara, Prost in the Ferrari, and Boutsen in the Williams very early on. Patrese out of the race within a lap as well. Hakkinen out of the race too. All with engine failures, those 4 cars, in the space of just 6 laps. So clearly not finding a lot of grace in this Canadian Grand Prix. But 2 of those drivers are under investigation from race control, Boutsen and Prost, for failing to get off the race circuit at a safe time, and that could really come back to bite them.
It certainly would. And on this lap alone now, Alesi's lost another half a second as Giacomelli's come into the pits for a change of tyres and more fuel to be added in the Lola LaRousse. He's having a good race. We're going to see how he does on the last stint, is Giacomelli. Presumably he will be going to the end. It will be his last stint. I think he would come out ahead of his teammate Hideki Suzuki. Then Alesi's now 19.7 seconds behind him, so he's continuing to lose ground on Senna. So Senna's doing a fine job on his third stint of tyres. Now I want to see how many laps of fuel he's got left, Jay, because it can't be too long before he comes in again.
Well, we'll have to have a look at it. So far, Alesi has fallen to 19.7 seconds back. As we know, he can go to the distance. Suzuki is about to pit in. What about Senna? Well, he's got another 4 laps or so, I think, before his next pit stop, but he is increasing the gap. This is going to be tight between Senna and Alesi. And I am being told there is an announcement coming from race control as Nelson Piquet comes into the pits. Alain Prost and Thierry Boutsen are going to be handed a 1-race ban for failing to remove their ailing cars from the circuit and causing an unsafe obstruction to fellow competitors. That is bombastic, Tom.
It is, and do you know what? I am not at all surprised. And no matter what stature you are, you have to obey the rules. And what could have happened? That could have been a real airborne collision. You know, the incident with Hakkinen and Mansell could have been airborne, even though the 2 made contact. The one with Prost and Boutsen, well, that could have been even worse.
Well, Alain Prost, who is already a fairly tempestuous racing driver, what is he going to make of that? You know, 5 races into a Grand Prix season, he hasn't scored a single point on a racetrack yet. He's done it off the circuit, obviously, but he has not scored a single point in race trim. He's not even looked close to getting to the end of a race so far in 1990. Would he throw a tantrum? Would he walk?
I wouldn't say he would walk. He just needs to rekindle the form that he had in 1989 when he was at McLaren. But yeah, he just needs to go away and think about what he's done. And yes, it's a frustrating thing at times. And I think you're going to get points in your career where when things aren't going right, and then you start to slowly look at the problems you've got and find that form again. So I would say it's more of a blip, Jake, rather than a sign of things to come from Prost, because I am confident that Prost is going to bounce back from his problems that he's had so far this season, and maybe not win the championship this season, but I think we're going to very much see the Prost that we do know of old.
Well, it's a fascinating situation, but a very tempestuous and very angry Alain Prost. And I'm sure Thierry Boutsen will be a little fed up as well, the Williams driver. There goes the Lotus of Derek Warwick, passing the Minardi of Pierluigi Martini as we get to the closing stages of this Canadian Grand Prix. 20 laps to go, and this man, Ayrton Senna, has pulled the gap over Jean Alesi to 21 seconds, but there is still some very tough race moments ahead of them, because this is going to be a close battle to the finish, because Senna still needs to make another pit stop. Alesi in the Tyrrell does not, nor does his own teammate Gerhard Berger. So Senna trying to win his second Grand Prix of the season. Let's not forget, he's only finished one race this year. And this is going to be a tough battle for both Senna and Alesi to win. Berger is just doing what he does best when he's got his mojo together. In third position, running smoothly, not pushing harder than he needs to.
One thing I haven't been paying attention is the pit window thing. I'd be interested to find out, how much the gap Senna would need in order to come out ahead of Berger. Now, he's continuing to extend the gap between himself and Alesi, we all know that, but has he got enough of a margin to his teammate in third place? Now, if he can come out ahead of Berger once he does his third and final stop, that would be very much convenient for Senna. And to be honest, the boss of McLaren want Senna to come out ahead of Berger, so they know that Senna's going to be on much pressure rather than this year.
And there would still be that little bit of hesitation in getting past Berger. Here's Piquet getting the move on Modena. No, he's not. In fact, Piquet looking very frustrated, sat behind Stefano Modena in the Brabham. And Modena is not exactly helping Piquet out here, causing all sorts of issues, these two, as Alesi continues to close up there on the back end. But Modena and Piquet are having an absolute war at the moment for sixth position, as Alesi continues his charge in P2. Berger running in third. The gap is 36 seconds between Berger and Senna at present. So it is debatable whether or not he could get out in front. Now here we go again between these two. Piquet pushes Modena. Oh dear. Very close between these two. And watch out for Capelli. He's catching both of them.
Yes, and Capelli is very much in play for a strong result. Gugelmin running well in fifth place after pitting twice. And you've got to put your hats back, give credit to Derek Warwick, who's kept his foot in there. He may not be in play for a podium, but he could be if anything happens to Senna, Alesi and Berger up front. But it's been another great showing from Derek Warwick today in the Lotus, who done too much wrong. I don't think he has done anything wrong today, and he very much deserves a brilliant top four finish, if not a podium.
Here comes Piquet. Finally, he gets the job done on Stefano Modena, but the three-time world champion will be bitterly frustrated. So, big moment there for Piquet as he got very flustered, stuck behind Stefano Modena. Senna's coming in. This is the lap. This is the lap that Ayrton Senna will pit in the McLaren. So this is the moment we've been waiting for from the Brazilian, and he will definitely want to make this one count. This is the race pit stop that could see him win the Grand Prix. Now, on paper, Tom, I don't think he can come out in front of Jean Alesi, but he will be on fresh tyres, so he'll have to do the Ayrton Senna style push. He'll have to go for the win on the racetrack.
And I think Senna has read Tyrrell's tactic, because Ricard Rydell was right in front of him. So Senna knows that he can't afford to lose any time being stuck behind that Tyrrell as he comes into the pits for his last stop.
Modena comes in as well in the Brabham, having held up Piquet for as long as humanly possible. Here's the final pit stop for Ayrton Senna, and this is the most important pit stop of the Grand Prix. Alesi surely is going to go into the lead. No problem at all for the Tyrrell, but he should get out in front of Berger with that pit stop. 8.8 seconds. Alesi goes through, and the Frenchman takes the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix. So, Jean Alesi is back in front, back in command of the Canadian Grand Prix with 17 laps to go, and with Ayrton Senna at least 8 seconds behind him. This is going to be a fascinating duel for the victory in the 1990 Canadian Grand Prix.
We are going to be in for a thrilling climax to the race here in Montreal. Senna, we just had a look to see what the gap is at the first set. sort of clocks it as he was coming out of the pits. It's at the moment 6.2 seconds. So I would like to think that he's going to claw that gap down quite quickly. Having said that, he's got some back markers to negotiate.
And so too does Jean Alesi. He's come out behind Stefano Modina's Brabham, and we know how much of a mobile roadblock that car was for Nelson Piquet. A shout out to Michele Alboreto running in 10th position. Don't forget that on the first lap of the race, he didn't have a rear wing, and he has managed to fight his way back past Modena, past Chiva, past Suzuki, past Martini, and past Damon Hill. He's in the pits, so he's going to drop back to 12th behind Chiva, but he has got just as good a chance as any of scoring a point in this race.
Well, Michele Alboreto was the last driver to win a race for Tyrrell. Is that hoodoo going to end with Jean Alesi on the top step of the podium today? Alesi's gap to Senna has now come down to 5.3 seconds. So should Senna continue clawing down that gap as he is doing at the moment, Senna, I would say, is going to be the favourite to get past Alesi. But catching is one thing, passing is quite another.
It's definitely coming down a second per lap as Senna opens up the taps on fresh tyres. Can Alesi hold him off? This is going to be a brilliant climax to the 1990 Canadian Grand Prix as Jean Alesi in the Red Bull Tyrrell leads. Ayrton Senna second in the McLaren. Third is Gerhard Berger. Fourth is Derek Warwick in the Lotus. Fifth is Gugelmin in the Leighton House. Piquet is sixth place in the Benetton. The second Leighton House of Ivan Capelli is next up as Warwick goes past one of the Larousses to lap him. Rydell in the second Tyrrell is in 8th place. Giacomelli is 9th place in the Larousse Lola. And in 10th place it is Stefano Modena in the Brabham. Fascinating battle as Piquet continues to push in the top 6.
He is, and Piquet's quite a long way behind Mauricio Gugelmin. So I can't think that Piquet's going to do anything about Gugelmin. I just want to have a look at the gap between Warwick and Gugelmin, because I would think that Warwick is on fresher rubber, but do keep an eye on the gaps at the moment, though. At the moment, it's at the 8.3 seconds, or just over 8.3 seconds, between Warwick and Gugelmin in the battle for 4th place. So we just want to have a look to see what the gap is as they cross the line. So Warwick is about to go over the line now. Now we're just going to wait for Gugelmin to go over the line. He's stuck behind a back marker that is pinned Luigi Martini in the Minardi. The gap is now just on the 8.2, so it's not that huge of a reduction of gap between the two drivers, but that's something to keep an eye on as now and the remaining 15 laps.
And certainly for the moment, it definitely looks as though, well, certainly for the moment at least, it looks as though we could have a fascinating battle. That's Alboreto unlapping himself from Berger's McLaren. So Berger in the McLaren has just been unlapped by Alboreto in the Arrows. Now that is rather unusual, certainly considering how competitive Berger is. He's fighting for the World Championship in 1990. Why would he just suddenly let Alboreto go? Has this one-stop strategy really fallen him off the cliff? Because if the car is not going to have any grip, if he's pushed the tyres too hard, and if they're not going to go the distance, then watch out, because Derek Warwick is behind him in 4th place, and he will be trying to close up. Meanwhile, Alesi is only now 1.8 seconds ahead of Senna. Senna has absolutely catapulted to the back bumper of that Tyrrell, and there it is. Look, Senna is closing up on Alesi.
It is, and going back to what we were saying about Berger, Alboreto had just made a pit stop, so it could be that Alboreto was on pressure tyres, which helped him get back through, and that was a move there from one of the Luis Lolas. I think that was Giacomelli maybe lapping Damon Hill by the looks of it. That could well be the case. But yeah, Alesi's very much under pressure now from Senna, because the gap was 1 second coming out of sector 1. What's the gap now coming into? Senna's into the lead, Jay!
Senna's got him. Senna's got Alesi. We're going to have to look at it back again. Senna has him on the slipstream. Nice manoeuvre into the hairpin. Easy as pie. Senna leads, even though he locked up. Senna did manage to control the car and get it stopped. So Ayrton Senna takes the lead at the Canadian Grand Prix.
And Alesi could have no answer to it. And with 14 laps to go as well, Alesi knew that it was going to be very, very tough for him to fight it. So it's very much game on. Well, I say it's game on. It's very much Senna's race to lose now. Now, a mistake from Senna would allow Alesi to have the upper hand going into the closing stages. Now, Gerhard Berger, his gap to Derek Warwick is just under 5.5 seconds in the battle for the final podium spot. Derek Warwick beginning to pull away a little bit now from Mauricio Gugelmin, who's in 5th place. And pretty much set in stone in regards to the top 10 come the end of the race. But there's still some way to go yet, and there's still time for things to change.
You've got to ask the question, how big a difference did Alesi having that pit stop a couple of laps earlier than scheduled make to the tyre life, because he's obviously got to be a little bit more conservative in this final stint, so that's got to play a factor into it, but also just how much has it unsettled him. And obviously there's that moment as well to consider with Damon Hill in the race. How big a difference did that make to the way things have panned out? So it is fascinating, but Senna is now 1.8 ahead of Alesi when he was 1.8 behind him only 2 laps ago. But this is a fascinating situation playing out now. We're watching Gerhard Berger. Now, it's clear that the 3-stop strategy has worked out beautifully for Senna, but the 1-stop strategy for Berger definitely isn't working out because he's losing time big style to Derek Warwick, who is catching him big time behind. Warwick has definitely started to increase the gap between himself and Gugelmin, keeping it nice and steady, but he's not even pushing that hard. Look, there he is in the background. Berger is going to struggle to hang on to the final podium place from Derek Warwick's Lotus.
Well, even it may look like it is, it's only like 5.3 seconds is the gap between Berger and Warwick. So I think Berger is going to have to settle for 3rd place at the moment, even though he would like to finish in 2nd place by catching Alesi. But yeah, Berger, his 1-stop strategy, his gamble has not quite paid off today. Even though he's had a respectable drive, I'm sure he would have liked to have been in the battle for the victory with Senna and Alesi. It's clear to me that the 3-stop strategy is the perfect strategy to be on in Montreal.
Well, Race Control have informed us that the scrutineers will be in operation after the race, and 4 teams are going to be checked over. This happens after each race to make sure that the teams are playing ball. 4 teams are checked at random, and obviously if anything is found, then they will obviously be penalised after the race. But it is 4 teams that are investigated at random, and we'll have to see what it is that they will discover and investigate. Senna, 3 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi at the moment, and just stretching out the gap. Berger is 17 seconds back. Warwick is about 5.3 off the McLaren. Gugelmin is half a minute off the race lead at the present moment. But there is Gerhard Berger trying his best to hold on to 3rd position. We're on board with his cockpit cam. And he's got, as you can see there, 12 laps of fuel left. And that's just as well because there's only 11 laps of this Grand Prix remaining. So you've got to be very careful. And fuel is definitely a big question mark here at Canada, because you obviously burn a heck of a lot of fuel. It's not unheard of for teams to run out of fuel in the closing couple of laps of racing.
No, it's not. And talking of which is fuel, Modena just came in for some fuel in the you see Modena in the race as well. But Modena has rejoined in 13th position, so you could be in play for the.
Someone's in trouble. Someone's in trouble up the road. Someone's in trouble up the road. Who is it? It's Alboreto, I do believe. Yes, it is Alboreto, and he is in trouble for more reasons than one, because the car is failing. But we've already heard that Prost and Boutsen are set to get race bans for not pulling off the road. That looks to me, Tom, like a fairly similar incident for Michele Alboreto, does it not?
It is, and he's slowing down now. Berger's just gone past, and I was worried for a moment whether he was actually going to slow down and pull to the side. I think he's going to do so now. Yeah, well, he's pulled to the side.
It's borderline, isn't it? Because he did patrol around the circuit a bit longer than he should have done, but perhaps he couldn't see what was wrong with the car. Perhaps he couldn't see the difficulty. He certainly didn't patrol around for an entire lap. He did about 5 corners, and he didn't actually cause an obstruction. He didn't slow anybody up. So it's borderline, but it's definitely not really what we want to see. And unfortunate for the Arrows team, as Alboreto was on course to potentially go for a point today. And that's it. Game over for him. He will not be classified, and Arrows do not score in the Canadian Grand Prix. That's Modena making the move on Suzuki for 11th place. Now that's important because the Brabham team are trying to get back into the points to close up on Ligier. Hackinen's a race winner earlier in the year, of course, but Modena has really struggled in 1990, and there are already suggestions that Stefano Modena's drive with the Brabham team could be under threat.
Indeed, and that was the team I was going to be after, Brabham. So Modena in the sole surviving Brabham, moving back up into 11th place after making his pit stop. So I know he's a lap behind the race leader, so we can't quite see what the gap is between himself and Chiba in 10th place. So it'll be interesting to see how far they are from the two, and maybe get a camera shot of where they are in regards to where they are on track. So the Chiva's just coming up to the hairpin now in the Ligier. Is Stefano Modena, then he can't be too far back, surely.
He's about half a lap. It's about half a lap behind, roughly.
Yeah, he's too far behind, so he's got to hope that someone ahead of him has got a problem. There's only 9 laps to go, so...
Been a quiet race for this guy, hasn't it? Mauricio Gugelmin, the one-stop strategy. He's not really pushed hard, but then he hasn't really needed to, in all honesty. He's just been able to bring the Leighton House around the course in fairly decent nick, running in 5th position. You can see that this car is very quick over 1 lap. They got it onto 2nd on the starting grid. And team boss Andrew Sanson will be very happy with that, but they just need to have something a little bit special to take them around the course a little bit faster and see what happens from their point of view. So it could be a very interesting one to see what happens to them next, but it's going to be a tough one, that's for sure, to see if they can get onto the podium of a Grand Prix anytime soon.
And Gugelmin, well, he failed to finish last time out in Monaco, didn't he? And he was in play for the race win as well, was Gugelmin, had it not been for his mechanical troubles. But, 5th place finish is a good result for Gugelmin and for the Leighton House squad. I'm sure that Ivan Capelli, who's running in 7th, will round up a solid day's work for the team, run by Mr. Adrian Newey himself, who's been in charge of the chassis design.
Well, the first 3 races have not gone well at all for Ayrton Senna this year, but now that we are out of Monaco, where he got his rhythm back together, he's here at Canada and looking to make it 2 wins in a row to really kickstart his championship assault. And that's definitely going to help out his cause, isn't it? Martini in the Minardi there, hoping to bring the team a race finish, which will definitely help their cause. They're not going to get a championship point today, but they're definitely running still at the tail end of the race. It is Senna leading, having stretched the gap between himself and the Tyrrell of Alesi to 7.5 seconds at the moment, although that gap is increasing. Berger seems to have found a little bit more pace to keep on top of Warwick. 6 seconds is the gap between those two, but he can't afford to let up because Warwick is pushing in the Lotus as hard as he dares to. Gugelmin is in 5th, Piquet in the Benetton is 6th, Capelli in the 2nd of the Leighton House cars is now 7th ahead of Rydell's Tyrrell. Giacomelli in the LaRousse Lola doing a brilliant job in 9th place. And Eddie Chiva in the Ligier, he's fought back well to take 10th position.
The best battle on the track right now is the race for 7 between Capelli, Rydell and Giacomelli. Giacomelli's 3.1 behind Rydell, as Rydell's currently 2.4, just under 2.4 off Capelli in 7th. So everywhere else it just looks very much tackle for the finish, really. So for Senna, he's got an 8.3 seconds gap over Jean Alesi in 2nd place. So it's a very, very commanding performance from Senna. He's got this race in his pocket. Can he become the first repeat winner of 1990? And all eyes would be very much on Jean Alesi because he has been, in my opinion, the star of the race. Or you could say Derek Warwick in that matter.
Well, what are the chances of this young Frenchman being picked up by one of the top teams? Although the way they're going, Tyrrell are becoming a top team again. It's been a long time since they've been competing for Grand Prix victories. They haven't quite been able to wrap this one up on pure pace. They could still do it if anything happens to the McLaren up front, but they're certainly heading in the right direction. Ayrton Senna just cruising home now for the last 5 laps, but he'll still be nervous in the wheel of that McLaren. He'll still be not too sure whether the car will get home because obviously he was leading in each of the opening 3 Grand Prix when he retired. But at Monaco last time out, he got the job done. So Gugelmin now working hard. Now, Gugelmin is being caught actually by Suzuki, who is a lap down in the LaRousse Lola. Gugelmin, clearly the tyres are really starting to drop now for the Leighton House because he hasn't got the grip even to keep the Lola Renault behind him. As Senna extends the gap to Alesi to 9.3 seconds.
Berger continuing to keep hold of 3rd place ahead of Derek Warwick. leader in the final point paying position for Ligier. Dave Hildad will be satisfied with that, given how the race has gone today for all the teams. And 4 out of the 6 cars qualified from the GoBobby.uk Cup race, Jake, are set to be classified.
That is not bad at all, is it? And it proves that pre-qualifying is so important because you can get prize money just by crossing the line in the Grand Prix. So that's a big moment for a lot of the teams in the pre-qualifying. Oh, Gugelmin nearly throwing it away at the first, that was the third chicane on the circuit, wasn't it? Heading onto the back straight. Gugelmin so nearly throwing it away. And he was lucky there as Berger continues, as we now have just 4 laps remaining, and Ayrton Senna, his title attack starts now. Monaco, he showed what he could have done, but here in Canada, Ayrton Senna is about to rechristen his chances of fighting for the 1990 World Championship.
Indeed, and that his points total from this race would move him ahead of Mika Hakkinen and Nelson Piquet into 3rd place, and he would be behind Derek Warwick and Gerhard Berger. In fact, Derek Warwick will still keep 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. Berger would in fact extend his lead over Derek Warwick. So even though it may not feel like it's been a great race for Gerhard Berger, he'll most definitely walk away from here and look back on this race later on in the season as it's a really, really positive result for himself.
It's certainly good points, and you need points to win prizes in Formula 1. So a good performance so far from Berger. Steady home in 3rd position in front of Warwick. Gugelmin doing the best he can with the one-stop strategy and making it work a lot better than his teammate. He really has outclassed Ivan Capelli so far this year, has Mauricio Gugelmin. Capelli has not looked on the same sort of pace. There's Alesi. I've been so impressed with Jean Alesi this year. He was a star in the making last year, of course, in the few races he did for the Tyrrell team, but they picked him up full-time for 1990. And this boy definitely has what it takes to fight for Grand Prix victories in the future. He's fought for this one. He hasn't quite managed to get it done, but 2nd place in the Tyrrell will be a brilliant reward for his efforts and a brilliant return for the incredible fight forward. Now, Williams has confirmed its intentions to appeal Thierry Boutsen's race ban following the conclusion of the Grand Prix. It's been announced by Race Control that they are going to hand Thierry Boutsen a 1-race ban. It is, of course, contestable. It is appealable. And Williams are going to exercise their right to appeal the decision. Of course, if they fail in that appeal, then the penalty could well be increased. So, a fascinating situation. Alesi, 2nd position in the Tyrrell, as he closes up to the hairpin. This will be a good result for Jean Alesi and for the Tyrrell team. They've had some difficulties over the start of the season. Monaco was a race that was completely taken away from them in the first 20 seconds of the Grand Prix. But they have shown what they can do, and they are a force to be reckoned with for the future again.
They are, and with Lacey showing great signs of potential, could other teams be asking for his signature for 1991 as well? As you know, we saw Senna do well in the Tolman in '84, and then getting the opportunity with the Lotus squad, won races with them, and then got the jump to a McLaren team who were going places, and he dominated 1988 as he picked up with his rivalry with Alain Prost. We all know how 1989 ended, rather acrimoniously between Senna and Prost. But you know, that's part of Grand Prix racing. It's about finding the young drivers out there, the young talent, these teams, big teams in the future of Formula 1.
Well, Senna is 11.8 seconds clear of Jean Alesi. He's actually getting bulked by the Minardi of Pierluigi Martini. That's a little bit of a headache for Senna as he comes through to lap Martini's Minardi for the 2nd time. But that will be no hesitation for the Brazilian as he gets through, no problem, on his way to victory, with Alesi in 2nd place, 12 seconds back. But what this is definitely going to do is give us a title fight for the World Championship. You've got to give credit to Warwick. He is the only driver so far this season to have scored points in every single Grand Prix this year. So Derek Warwick being there in 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship with 4th position in the Canadian Grand Prix. Senna's on his last lap, and you have to say, Tom, it's been an amazing run.
It has, and given where Senna started on the grid, he had to really, really fight for it today. And the 3-slot strategy, it was a gamble, but it was a gamble that paid off for him. And he will be absolutely delighted to make it back-to-back victories and get his World Championship back on track. Put him on course for his 2nd Drivers' Championship. Gerhard Berger with with his third place finish, it'll still keep him at the top of the Drivers' Championship, so he'll still very much be in the running for it.
Well, it's definitely been a great race for Jean Alesi. It's been a solid race for Gerhard Berger, but for the man up front, it's going to be a race victory. No! I don't believe it! On the last lap, Ayrton Senna's got a problem! The engine is on fire on the last lap! Can Senna get into the finish? In the dying seconds of this race, Ayrton Senna with an engine problem. He's going to try and bring it home. But the McLaren has faltered on the final tour. He's coming into the... He's not going to make it! Ayrton Senna loses the victory on the final lap. It's going to go to Tyrrell. And Jean Alesi, Senna's car, doesn't make it. Jean Alesi comes out of the final turn and wins the Canadian Grand Prix. I cannot believe it.
Well, if I thought I had seen everything in Grand Prix racing, I'd be very much mistaken. What appalling luck for Ayrton Senna. He had done everything right in this race, and for it to collapse with only 2 corners to go is extraordinary. I was concerned whether he was going to get a point or not. He's going to drop down to 10th place.
Oh my goodness, Senna is going to drop down to 10th position. He will only score a point from this Canadian Grand Prix, and we now have 5 different winners from the first 5 Grand Prix. Jean Alesi is the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix of 1990. You would never have predicted that going into the final lap. That is absolutely astonishing. Berger is second. Warwick is third. From Gugelmin, Piquet, Capelli, Rydell, Giacomelli, Cheever, and Ayrton Senna will be classified as 10th. But the win was his in the bag. How bittersweet is Grand Prix racing? How cruel is the top flight of motorsport? But for Jean Alesi, he is victorious in Montreal and the Canadian Grand Prix. I cannot believe it has come to this. Senna does not win the Canadian Grand Prix. It's Alesi that gets the victory. 14 seconds clear of Berger, with Warwick third, Gugelmin fourth, Piquet, Capelli, Rydell, Giacomelli, Cheever and Senna are your points scorers. The fastest lap was to Ayrton Senna. The win was his, but in the dying seconds of the Grand Prix, Tom, victory is denied for McLaren, and Tyrrell wins their first Grand Prix for 7 years.
I mean, what an incredible... I mean, the best highlight was saved until the last lap, but appalling luck for Ayrton Senna, because, you know, to get his championship charge back on track, he really, really needed another strong result to keep up the momentum in Monaco, and it just feels like the world has just totally collapsed on him. It's absolutely horrific to see him pull out in such horrific circumstances. But for Jean Alesi, I mean, you can't blame him. He's been absolutely phenomenal in this race today. He kept himself in the frame. Yes, he dropped back by, you know, a dozen seconds to Senna at the end, but he kept himself in there, and he thoroughly deserved it. And one man we can't forget as well is Derek Warwick, to finish on the podium as well. He absolutely deserved to be up there in the top 3, did Warwick. But for Senna, I mean, you just have to feel for him.
What a thriller of a Canadian Grand Prix right to the last. The Tyrrell pit crew have gone absolutely bananas. Let's talk to some of the team managers after a thrilling Grand Prix, it has to be said. We're going to speak first of all to a couple of the teams from the pre-qualifying group. Ed Hunter is the first one from Lego Acela. Ed, an interesting race for the team, because obviously Zanardi showed solid pace in the pre-qualifying, as did Blundell. Just cruel luck for Blundell, essentially, that the car looked like at one point it was going to bring through to the Canadian Grand Prix, and it just hasn't quite worked out for the team. You must be bitterly disappointed.
Yeah, well, it could be worse, as we've just seen with Ayrton Senna. So, but yeah, it does seem like reliability's not been too great. We're sponsored by Lego, but it seems we're falling apart like Chinese mega blocks at the moment. So. No disrespect to Chinese mega blocks men, of course, but
absolutely. I mean, it is going to be a tough race next up at Mexico, but I have a feeling that there could be quite a few teams who could bag some decent points there, because obviously the high altitude is going to make for a fascinating race. How good do you think the team's chances are there?
Oh, we got the Ford Cosworth, which isn't the best engine, so I think the higher altitude might level the playing field somewhat against the likes of the Hondas, the Ferraris, etc., etc. So who knows? We just want to make it through the race, because we did make it through in Brazil and did pretty well. We finished 11th and 12th, and then since then we've just had little things that stopped us getting through. So maybe our luck will turn. Who knows? But if it doesn't, we'll just have a good ride, giving it our best, and seeing how close we can get to getting in. It'd be nice to just finish a race without having the wheel fall off or the gearbox pack in.
Fantastic.
Really
well,
nice.
You must. I was just going to say something, Ed. You must have been satisfied with Sonardi's performance, though, because he came in with damage at the end of lap 1 in the pre-qualifying race, and then found his way back up until he had the problems at the end. Are we expecting some great things from him next time out in Mexico and beyond?
He has a lot of resilience, this Mr. Zanardi. He's very, very much impressive since the beginning of the season. He nearly won in Phoenix if it wasn't for another reliability issue we had there at the very beginning of the season. So, yeah, I think Mark has done very well since he's come in. And certainly in qualifying, Mark has been right up there. And Alex has been doing his thing, really making progress in the races, pulling off some brilliant overtakes too. So I hope we're going to see a bit more of that. And if they can get a good result as well, I think they'll make it all the sweeter.
Fair enough. Well, it's good to talk to you, Ed. Thanks very much for updating us on how things are with Lego Acela. We'll see you guys back in action at Mexico City, the 6th round of the championship. Let's grab a word with Michael Gillespie over at Minardi. Joy for the Italian team in the pre-qualifying to get through to the Grand Prix. Not a bad run from Martini and Brundle in the race earlier, and obviously Martini to bring the car forward, but still some signs of some work to be done with the Minardi chassis.
Yeah, there is still some work to be done. Shame for Martin with his suspension failure there.
You're muted, Michael.
I think Michael is okay. Yeah, Michael is okay. Coming through fine.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. Actually, sorry. Yeah, good performances all round, especially in pre-qualifying. Martini was moving his way up the order and reached that 4th place we needed to get to qualify, and he continues his 100% finishing record in every race he started so far. So positive performances from him, but we need to work out a bit more speed in terms of qualifying. We're kind of a bit hit and miss there, and we were a bit missed today. So, but we'll work on it and see what happens in the next round.
Fair play. Well, it's good to see Minardi back in the race again, and hopefully they'll have another crack at it at Mexico. Thanks very much, Michael. Good to hear from you.
You too.
Tom Cairns, I suppose we should probably come to you at this point, obviously, as one of the pre-qualifying teams as well. The Life car, it's getting better, but there still needs to be a little bit of a kick in the backside for McNish and Fittipaldi. What's going to be the next game strategy working forward?
I think it's the car at the moment. I mean, they've still got an awful lot to learn in the Life car at the moment. We've got a huge amount of budget that we still need to be using up before the season finishes, because I think, as far as I'm concerned with the regulations, the budget that we have for 1990 does not carry over into 91. So we want to use the money as much as possible, as soon as possible, really. And the car is reliable, but it's certainly not quick enough at the moment. So I think a lot of it's going to go on the engine power at the moment.
And obviously, with 2 young whippersnapper drivers in there, the grid seems to be getting younger and younger in Formula 1. I mean, they seem to be handling it, though. I mean, Fittipaldi, the youngest man in the field, McNish is the next youngest, but they seem to be handling it okay.
Hey, if they're good enough, they're good enough, no matter what age they are.
This is very true. This is very true. Thanks, Tom. We'll catch up with you in a little bit as we close the show, but let's have a word with a few of the teams that were in the Grand Prix itself. First of all, to Tova Smith of the Williams team. At Monaco, you guys were cruelly robbed when both drivers were leading and then lost the race. Here at Canada, you guys didn't even really get out of the starting blocks.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said that I was happy about the result, Jake. It was really disappointing to see both cars retire like that. It's bad enough seeing one car retire in the fashion that it did, but then when the other one also goes within a lap, then, yeah, it's just a double dose of pain, really, and it's not really what we wanted to see this weekend. Regarding the race ban for Boots, and I said earlier that we will be appealing the decision. I believe that is wrong to hand him a race ban for that. Simple reason being that he felt so he could have made it back to the pits where we could have sorted out the car and got him back out on track and forth some points. This is a sport after all. We are fighting for a championship. We need to get as mani points as we can. So I feel as though a race ban for that was wrong, given that he was just simply trying to get back to the pits so he could get back in the race.
Okay, what did Thierry say about it after the race? Did he give any indication as to what exactly it was that went wrong with the car?
He's still not completely certain himself. We haven't had a chance to look over the data yet. After he got back to the pits, he wanted to go and cool off a bit because he wasn't really that happy, especially after suffering what is his 4th retirement in a row now. So he wanted to go and cool off for a bit. So I just left him to that while the rest of the Grand Prix went on. So shortly we will be reviewing the data, reviewing the footage, and we'll go over everything. And we look forward to the next upgrade window where we can try and put a bit more reliability into the car.
Okay, well, thanks, Topher. I know it's a difficult conversation, but thanks for catching up with us. Hopefully, brighter days are ahead for the Williams team in Mexico.
Cheers, Jake.
Let's grab a word with Ryan Ferris of the Lotus team. Ryan, this is an unusual situation for young Derek Warwick to be in. We know how good he's been over the last few years, but finally he has a car underneath him that can potentially give him a fight for the title. 2nd in the standings, 3rd in the Grand Prix. It's all smiles at Lotus.
Well, yeah, and I think it's all credit to the Renault power unit that we've swapped to. Obviously, for Donnelly, we suffered our first engine failure with the Renault. So we've been quite lucky to have lasted this long, where the Hondas haven't quite lasted as long as this. And yeah, it's just Warwick's just gone about his business. He was very unlucky to have his electrical issue. Towards just coming up to his 2nd stop. We feel maybe if he had made it to his 2nd stop without any issue, he may have been able to have overhauled Berger, but the tyres were just a bit too old. But yeah, we're very happy and everything seems to be chugging along nicely, touch wood.
Now, there's a fascinating dynamic that seems to be appearing in a few teams where one driver is particularly fast compared to the other in the team. It does seem as though Warwick has a massive advantage compared to Donnelly over the course of the season. How big a difficulty could that be as you start to gain ground, but there are other teams out there that are going to try and take points off you?
Well, Donnelly hasn't been very lucky recently. He's had many a DNF, either suspension issue, which has come to him being a bit too generous with hitting the curbs. And obviously the engine blow up. Obviously it wasn't his fault today, but the thing you got to remember is it's only his first season in Formula One, and he's been doing a fairly good job in the races that he's been competitive in. So as far as it is, his job's okay. But if it does continue, we may need to look into other drivers. But I'm still happy as it is. We didn't think that we were going to be in this position at the start of the season.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to see how the Lotus has been coming on, and a podium, definitely a good return for the efforts. Congratulations, Ryan. Keep up the good work. Great stuff. Our final word then with our winning team manager. It is the Tyrrell Red Bull Honda team that have come through in fantastic style today for Jean Alesi of France, the 5th different race winner of the season. And our team boss is Sam Hall. Sam, victory very hard to come by in 1990, but after 5 races only, Jean Alesi has taken his first Grand Prix win. How are you guys feeling?
We're okay, Jake. I mean, after giving you that poutine earlier, you didn't mention the win was on too much, and we got our win. So thanks for not cursing, Jean. I mean, we loved you talking about Ayrton plenty of times, and in all seriousness, I mean that was heartbreaking. Sort of for McLaren seeing Ayrton retire on the last lap at the last corner. I mean, it could happen to anyone. It has happened to other teams. I mean, we've had desperately bad luck with Jean across the season so far. He's been in contention to win at least 3 races before today. So commiserations to Chris Buxton and McLaren. But yeah, we're over the moon here. And Ricard finishing in 8th, I think it was as well. That's just an added bonus. Yeah, we're over the moon down here.
So it's been 7 years since the last win for Tyrrell. What does that do, firstly, for the morale of the team, but also does that give you guys a bit of a push now to try and get some more wins and even mount a title attack in this crazy season?
Well, I think, yeah, we were already privately eyeing the titles because, as you know, we've got plenty of spare budget. We didn't spend too much budget on drivers, which that decision seems to be paying off now. So we've got plenty of budget to be improving reliability, power. And yeah, we genuinely think we're in with a shout with this. That McLaren looks incredible. The Brabham as well, they've got I know they've got plenty of budget, you and Gale over there, so Mika Hakkinen is going to be one to watch. I do think it could be between Ayrton, Jean Lacey, and Mika Hakkinen this year. I really do think they're the three main ones in the title race.
Well, it's fascinating stuff. Thanks very much indeed, Sam. It's good to catch up with you. Congratulations on a win in the Canadian Grand Prix. Well done. So, Tom Cairns, it's time to wrap up on what has been a fascinating Grand Prix here in Montreal. I never thought it was going to go down to the wire in quite the manner in which it did, but it's certainly been a thriller, and it definitely gives us an exciting battle now for the title fight.
It most definitely does, and this is why we love Grand Prix racing so much. We have seen hell of a lot over the course of these 5 rounds. You know, I cannot wait to see what happens next time out in Mexico, and hopefully we'll see a lot more entertainment, a lot more overtaking. I mean, we saw a hell of a lot of overtaking throughout today, and I can only wish for there to be more, and I am confident with my heart and my head that we'll be seeing a whole lot more action in the races to come.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for sharing the commentary box with me. It's been a fascinating Grand Prix here. Round 5 of the championship is done. 5 different winners from the first 5 races. The Mexican Grand Prix is next. It'll be streamed here on YouTube for the Retro Racing Managers League in the Grand Prix 2 World Championship in the days following Christmas. So you won't hear from us again in the interim from the Grand Prix 2 World Championship of 1990. The days following Christmas, we will be back for the 6th round of the championship as we continue racing, whether there is lockdown or not. I am Jake Sanson. I hope you've enjoyed the broadcast. From all of us here at Downforce, and on behalf of our associates GoBobber.uk and everybody involved in the Retro Racing Managers League, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.